And here we go. Welcome to You Had Me at Halo's 52nd episode, as we're going to delve into one of gaming's most storied franchises with a very special guest, where we're going to cover topics that include, but are not limited to, Halo Canon's journey as a content creator, Bungie to 343's lore, the TV show's lore, and of course, the lore that is the Halo community. Before we delve into the topics, let's meet today's Spartan cast, a cast that brings their own controversial canon. That's not including you, Ian. That's for these guys. But first, let's present our special guest, Ian, aka Mr. Halo Canon. How you doing?
I'm doing okay today. Thank you. It's great to be here.
It's awesome to have you, and thanks for joining us. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, kind of delving into some nostalgia and backstory of Halo. Next up, we got Mr. Spartan Jesse, aka Mr. Doan Cabeza.
Doan? Well, hello. I hope everyone's doing well. I'm sure you don't hear my voice or see my face too much on our site, so here I am once again.
Next up, we got Spartan Ursel, aka Mr. Soul Blazer.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. Thanks for asking.
All right, guys. So thank you for that. Finally, it's your host, Spartan Abe, aka Mr. One Bad Mother. All right, so I'm going to kind of get right into it. We got, a guest here. We've had a lot obviously has happened to Halo here. A lot of, a lot over the last couple years. We just had the TV show, but before we really get into all that, I want our guests to get a chance to know you a little bit. You've been covering Halo for a while, and you come here probably with, well, not probably, but with with the most expertise when it comes to really the lore and the details and things like that. So what really want to just let you kind of tell us about your journey into, content creation. Tell us like when you got started and kind of like what brought you to Halo.
Yeah. Well, I guess the best place to start would be with what brought me to Halo. And really, it was just a random happenstance in the middle of, or in summer of 2004, I stumbled upon the Halo TV. I think it was called like the Halo TV or theatrical trailer, something like that. And it was a very good 30-second trailer. It really stuck in my head later that year, or like early next year. It was sometime in winter right after that. So late 2004, early 05. I finally asked a friend of mine, hey, have you heard of this thing? I was like called Halo or something. Whips out Halo 2, and like a total noob, I was the guy that assumed that Master Chief was called Halo. And I got to be honest, it's like, so this is Halo? No, that's Master Chief. Is this Halo? No, that's I don't know. As I asked a couple times before they finally.
Don't be too embarrassed. We know there's Tim Apple, right? He became a new thing.
Well, in my defense too, my friend threw me right into the level of Metropolis, so I had no context for anything I was doing. And honestly, funny thing too, by the time I finally finished Halo 2 and got around to Halo 1, I was disappointed when I didn't see the Arbiter in Halo 1. Because everything Halo 2 told me or indicated to me that the Arbiter was a main character, or at least present in Halo 1. So that was a shock for me.
That is a drastically different experience than most Halo players.
Or you know what? It wasn't when I played Halo CE the first time. It was when I read Halo the Flood, because I didn't get to play Halo CE, funny enough, until 2007. So interesting. That was a long time. Yeah, my parents were very anti-video game in the household, not for like the traditional reasons you might think of, but because they thought it would be a distraction. And the one time that they let me rent a PS2 for a couple of weeks for my birthday, they were proven right. So yeah, but so because of that, because I couldn't experience the games except when I'm playing with my friends, and they mostly wanted to play Halo 2 at the time, and usually multiplayer at that. Yeah. My main outlet for experiencing Halo for many years, or at least for a few years, was exclusively through the books. And that is in part why I have such a strong attachment to the lore. So a friend of mine, a friend of mine ended up telling me about them, and just Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your question.
No,
please.
no, not at all. My bad. I just wanted to kind of touch on that.
Yeah.
So it's really more the story that attracted you, like the more than the game itself.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and that's just a thing that's kind of been part of me for forever. Just with anything I was ever interested in, it was always because of some interesting story that was being told. Or the interesting deeper lore of that, which I absolutely attribute to both my parents being nerdy as hell, especially my dad. But so yeah, once Halo came around and once I found out about those books from a different friend, the rest was history. I was destined to, at the very least, only talk about Halo in a lore context, or largely through a lore context for the rest of my life.
Really? So like the people you would speak to Halo about, did you find that they also had read the books as well, or were they mostly just coming from the games?
Those early years before I was really active online and I was only like interacting with people IRL, summer programs, school, et cetera, et cetera. Most of the people I had spoken to were at least familiar with the books, though at the time, it's 2005, 6, 7. There are 4 books at that point, or maybe 5 by the time we get to late 2007, and then there'd be one more the year after. So it's like it was a lot easier to not only have heard of the books but be familiar with the story in those books. Whereas now you have over, I think if we're not at 30 yet, we're about to hit. I think we're actually over 30.
I think we're over 30. Books. I think
yeah, even more. So, absolutely, if you include like ebooks and physical release, because that just anyway.
Ian, question that I'm sure there's going to be people listening, now or later that are going to wonder about this, because sometimes we get the question like, "Hey, where do I start if I really, if I'm getting into Halo now or recently, or I didn't really pay attention to the story too much before I just played the games, but I want to kind of start reading the books. Where would they start? Like, what are some, is there like a street, like a short path to kind of getting caught up on the main moments, or like what books would you recommend that they go with to begin?
Well, I like your question about the path to get into it, because I think that's the best way to frame it. Because for as intimidating as all the Halo media, or even just the books specifically, can be, they're all written to be welcoming to newcomers. So technically speaking, there are multiple paths into how you could enjoy the Halo story. And the way I would, or the way I'd guide people, I guess, is to find out what you want from Halo as a story. What is the most interesting part of it? If you're really interested in the Covenant and the elites, like Covenant canon, then I would probably direct you over to Contact Harvest, or what was the other one? Halo Broken Circle, which is entirely Covenant focused. If you want just a general overview of the lore, I'd probably say Fall of Reach. That's still a great one to sink your teeth into as a new fan. Or even the recent Halo Silent Storm has a very similar feel to Fall of Reach in a lot of ways. So it's very welcoming as a first read.
That was the Master Chief story, right?
Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And then if you're like me and the most interesting aspects of a franchise are the stuff we very rarely see on screen, then something like the Kelly Gay trilogy with Ryan Forge would be your best bet. Smoke and Shadow, Renegade, and Point of Light.
Those are very good.
Very good. Yes, the last one gets much more, or Point of Light gets much more into Forerunner themes, but they start out very much as a look at the Halo universe from a non-standard point of view. Our main character is a salvager, a pirate, is in essence, in a lot of ways.
And that's the one that follows the daughter of the character in Halo Wars.
Yeah, I believe. Yes, indeed. And I won't name him just in case there's people that in those books and want to read it. But yes, there's a connection to Halo Wars. So
all right, you're right. I should probably keep.
Yeah, you know what? If Halo Wars is your favorite Halo game, then check out those, because those are really good. Or there's even the Halo Wars Genesis comic. There you go.
And Kelly Gay's writing the upcoming Rubicon Protocol is by her.
Yes, she is. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Definitely reading. That got delayed a couple times, I think, right?
It was originally going to release before the Halo Encyclopedia, in fact.
That's back to August 9th. Let me double check.
Yeah, it's early or late August, one of those two.
I'm actually really looking forward to that one, because I feel like I've already kind of grown attached to these characters through Infinite and the audio logs. So I'm curious to see how the book portrays them.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious to see how they're going to approach the storytelling, since it's essentially telling a story that we've already read.
Yep.
And I guarantee, or I don't guarantee, but I imagine like 90% of the people that are going to be picking up this book, well, you know what? No, I'm not going to say
a large amount. A large amount have played in it.
There's a good amount. Yeah, let's say this. There's going to be a good amount of people that have already heard all the audio logs, and the book needs to figure out a way to make this story we've already heard engaging.
Yeah.
Luckily, Kelly Gay is a fantastic author, so I have little doubt that she's going to deliver.
Man, in my head, I was thinking all these other books were written by the guy who did Shadows of Reach. And
Troy Bennings.
I wasn't the biggest fan of Shadows of Reach, so I was kind of hesitant on reading more of his books, but I didn't know this was a new author. I'm definitely going to check those out.
Yeah. Shadows of Reach, I thoroughly enjoyed, but it seemed like I've also heard from other people that it was one of the weaker books, Master Chief, or
I still enjoyed it. Books. I think what didn't help was I listened to the audiobook and I listened at like 1.5 or 2 speed, and so Chief did not sound like Chief. I'll tell you this much.
I always listen to audiobooks sped up, and the second I slow it back down, it's like, oh wait, is this what I've been listening to all this time? Who are these people or who are these voices that I'm hearing now? Or especially the ones that have audio. And it's like, wait, this is what is what, or not. Of course, all audiobooks have audio. I meant those like that have music, or even voice acting is even an even bigger one. But yeah, like if they have music, like the Dune audiobooks do.
He did Divine Wind right after Shadows of Reach, didn't he?
That came out like a year later.
Yeah, that was him, and I really liked Divine Wind after being middling on Shadows of Reach.
Okay,
Divine Wind is really good.
Divine Wind was amazing, and apparently
the lore implications from it that I still can't talk to with these guys because they never read it. It's been so goddamn long. I tried to. I read it, and no one else did.
You're right.
It came out last October, so I'm literally going to say it. But the fact that, Jesus Christ, it was last October. Can I just say one of the big things? The prophets are still around.
The race, in general?
Their race really? That went hid. That went. It was sort of intimated earlier that they had sent off a ship full of themselves.
Funny enough, in Halo Shadow of Intent.
Yeah, where nobody knows where they were going to, and then they finally popped up back here on the Ark where Halo Wars 2 takes place, and a little after Halo Wars 2, and they join in on that fight, and it's awesome.
Well, we got the one in there. They also hinted at a whole what do they call it?
Oh yeah, we got him.
There was a whole what
Armada.
Do you call that? Yeah, Armada. I was trying to say like not a colony flotilla. Thank you. That's the word.
Yes, I remember.
Yeah, there's a whole flotilla of them. There you go.
We get to see their big ass warrior guy. Yeah.
But there was like a whole flotilla of them headed towards a shield world, and they actually revealed what the Prophet of Truth's plan actually was. And it's exactly what everyone thinks it was, but it was nice to get it down on paper so we can stop debating it in like those small corners of the community.
So here's the idea, guys, because I think one thing I do want to come back to, and maybe we'll do this a little bit later, where we can tell our audience, hey, we're going to do some book spoiler stuff in here. I think that just full transparency, I'm the worst reader of this entire group. We have 2 other people that are on this show that also are lore
challenge accepted.
Lore heads. So I'm the worst one here, and probably know the least about the expanded lore out of our group here. But when I find out certain things, I'm like, wow, there's like a lot of potential for 343, like where they could still go, and some of the cool surprises that people that could bring back that might still be alive. And I heard some other things. So I think we'll come back to that probably at the later part of the show, because I think that will be an interesting thing to talk about as we discuss where we hope 343 goes. Like, what are some of the expanded things that they like a lot of times the gamer guys that just really understand Halo from the game and then the TV show, our understanding of the world and perception of the world is so much less than I think people that have read everything else. And I remember even Phil Spencer said that one time, where he was like, like this lore is so expansive, and it's like, it's basically there's so many places they can go with it. So definitely want to get into that a little bit later. But I do want to come back to your background. So you got into the games now, or because of the story. No, it's awesome. These are awesome things to kind of.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm not complaining. Don't get me wrong. I honestly forgot that's how this discussion started. So this
is what we do. This is what we do. We're gonna chase so many squirrels before the end of the show. That's easily distracted by shiny objects. So at some point in time, you decided to get into content creation for it. Mm-hmm. So tell us, when did you start with that, and like what got you into the content creation?
Well, that started initially with, funny enough, Bionicle based music videos on YouTube. Similar to Halo, I was huge into Bionicle primarily because of its very deep lore. And I've told people before, if you think Halo lore is at any point ever confusing or hard to keep up with, don't get me started on how you had to keep up with Bionicle lore. Because to get the complete story, you had to go to like 5 different sources every year. And every part of that was required reading to get the full story. Anyway, I started out with, just Bionicle music videos, taking clips from the commercials and the movies and putting them over, in my case, my favorite, in a lot of cases, it was my favorite Inuyasha openings and closing themes.
Oh, that's cool. So you're opening up a time capsule for me now of that period. Holy crap!
I was just listening to like all the old Inuyasha ending themes because they were all so good. But I'm not going to drive us down that rabbit hole. So from there, that was my first experience with YouTube. Some of my other friends had done some experience with YouTube, and me and some friends, being fans of Red versus Blue, we decided to make our own machinima, and that happened for about a year or so. And it was a fun experiment. It got me familiar with a bunch of basics about YouTube and video editing. But 2012 is when I started.
At the time for the editing.
I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was we had gone out to Best Buy. We bought this capture device, and it was like a classic 3-prong capture device for those old standard definition TVs and whatnot. Bought that. It came with a proprietary editing software, and that's what we used. And these videos got pushed out at like 240p. But at the time it looked amazing.
Yeah, it did.
So
I used Windows Movie Maker a lot back then, and
that's what I did for the music videos.
Yeah. Do you remember the crashing? Every 5 minutes or so, it would just crash for no reason.
That got me. That was a big reason that I am very save conscious these days. Not because of schoolwork, but because of Windows Movie Maker.
Yep. I swear
that's one of my favorite things. DaVinci Resolve Studio is click to save. So every time you click the mouse, it saves.
That's super nice. I did not know I even had that, and I've been using it.
Nice.
But I swear I remember Movie Maker crashing while I clicked Control S, and I'm like, "Come on, this is the one thing you should
had at least once." Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Go on.
That's all good. But so I'd say that Machinima phase was like 2008. We had big dreams of getting featured on machinima.com back when that was a thing. Obviously, never happened, but we had some fun while we were making that shit. And eventually, like I said, it kind of faded. We didn't do a whole lot with it, but I was still very passionate about the lore, and I'd join in on the Bungie Universe forums and 343's forums once those kicked up, talking about Halo as much as I can with as many people in the community. And then what ultimately got me to make into YouTube as a Halo lore content creator was kind of two things. And if anyone's heard, some people have heard this story before, it's going to be a little different this time. It's because there's another aspect I don't really highlight all that often, but it's a more positive aspect than the secondary, than the other part.
Okay.
Because the first reason I got into YouTube was because there weren't any Halo lore creators out there, or the ones that, there wasn't anybody talking about Halo lore on YouTube, or if they were doing it in a way that I felt was incompetent, to put it politely.
Yep.
Like anytime I'd watch one of these videos, I'd just be screaming at the screen. It's like, no, it's like this and it's like that. Just go to Halopedia and Google it before you do this, or make the video or something. That is the big thing I try to do, and I don't always succeed. I'll say, but I always try to go to Halopedia or whatever wiki I might be referencing for, whatever I'm writing up, and make sure that I get it right.
Yep, I've seen comments on the videos where it's like, actually, this is this and this is that. I'm like, wow,
yeah, and it's like, and I hate when that happens, because not because they pointed it out, mind you, but because like, how did I let that slip through?
Yeah,
and you can never know. But anyway, so yeah, I saw a bunch of people not really doing very well with Halo lore, in my opinion. So it just kind of built up, and eventually in 2012, I decided to launch the channel. The other half of that, though, was a project that I relatively recently revamped, and that was the Halo Battle, or the Battle of Reach timeline. Because back in like 2012 or so, 2011, there was obviously a bit of controversy in the community about how everything fit together. 343 hadn't quite laid out all the lore they have since laid out, and that just became a huge pseudo project that a bunch of people started working on in the community, primarily in the Halo Waypoint forums, at least as I saw it. And I started getting in on this, and it was really fun to talk about, and people were figuring out this, and that. And that was really the project that kind of pushed me into Halo Canon or pushed me all the way into Halo Canon. Because even when I started this channel back in 2012, there was a period where I just kind of stopped. Like Halo 4 came out, I stopped producing for, well, it was May 2013 when I made my next upload. And the very next upload after that comeback video essentially was the Fall of Reach video.
I'm guessing it did well.
Oh yeah, it did very well. It continued to do well for years, and the revamped version is still very popular too.
Yeah, I've seen that.
2 years ago you did that, right?
The new version.
Yeah. It was interesting because you were talking about, so you were just talking about one of the things that drove you was a lot of the content creators not getting the lore right. So what do we think about the developers keep getting the lore right? Because that was a big controversy, right? I think that's one of the things that, so let's talk about it, because actually that was, when this group brought me on to your content, that was one of the first things that popped up for me, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting. Nice. I wasn't even aware. I took a little break from gaming for a few years, and it was about the time that Reach came out, so I'd missed as big of a Halo fan as I have been since CE launched. I missed all that. I missed the controversy. I didn't know that what it was like at that time. So I guess kind of delve into that a little bit more, because I think that's kind of an interesting, that's an interesting jumping off point to kind of the Bungie, the 343, like how consistent do you think they are with their own lore over time, and do you think they've been able to patch up most of the maybe inconsistencies or gaps?
I'll say this for both developers. For Bungie, I completely get why they did what they did. I don't agree with the route they took, but I get it. Or I shouldn't say I get it. I understand it as much as an outsider can, I think.
What do you mean by the route they took? Sorry.
No, that's excellent, because I definitely want to explain that. Because when just for anyone who might not be fully familiar, when Halo was first bought by Microsoft back in 2000, they wanted, as they were like building up their catalog of launch titles for the Xbox, they also wanted some pre-release material to kind of advertise some of their bigger franchises. And like I know Crimson Skies was among that. I think Perfect Dark might have gotten a novel in there way back in the day, but don't quote me on that one. But there were a handful of franchises that Microsoft made novels for, and one of those was, of course, Halo, and that first book was Halo: The Fall of Reach, which became the seminal work within the lore. It's still held on a pedestal today. Whether it deserves to be there is debatable, but that's another discussion. But it became this loved work for many fans. So when Halo Reach comes along, it has a fundamentally different story in a lot of aspects. It references lore, so these writers were very much aware of it. Like there's the famous radio conversations. There are radios that on the multiplayer maps, and if you listen to them, they have dialogue. And one of the stories told through that medium is the story of Beta Red Team, which is pulled straight from Halo First Strike.
Interesting.
They even get some details that are straight out of the book, such as like the easy ones, the number of Spartans exactly.
Yeah.
So they're definitely aware of this stuff, but they wanted to tell their own story. They didn't want to be restricted by someone else's framework, which I completely understand, or I understand as much as an outsider can. You don't, as a creative, you don't want to work, or you want the freedom to inject your own ideas into a thing. And Bungie had a particular vision for how Reach should fall. Again, I don't agree with it, but I understand as much as one can.
I remember getting so excited for Halo Reach, and by this point, I had read obviously the Island trilogy and a few other books.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh man, we're finally getting. I remember that first teaser, and I'm like, holy crap, we're finally getting Reach's story. This is going to be phenomenal. And I play it, and it's a good game. It is. The campaign's a good game.
Absolutely.
But the entire time, I'm like, what is happening? Wait, Cortana? What is happening? What is? And it ends, and I'm like, what? And it really soured my experience on the campaign a fair bit. I replay it now and I have a blast. I remember back then thinking like I didn't like this, like the disrespect almost in a way they did to a book I had read numerous times at that point and loved was just it didn't fit right with me.
Yeah, I get that, and I definitely had a period of time dealing with that. Is the best way to put it. And I'm very thankful that I was not on Twitter at that time. Let's say that. I'm very thankful that I was not about posting my feelings online at that time.
Yeah.
But I think Reach works well enough for what Bungie wanted to do. But
and it works well as like a direct point into CE, right? Technically, like if all you're playing other games, it's a great
It is a good lead-in. That's actually one of the things I like the least about that. I wish it hadn't been tied into the original series, but that's again, that's another discussion. I really did appreciate though when 343 came around and tried their best to get the lore to fit together. There's a lot of areas where they still haven't talked about certain things that like fans would obviously be eager to know about, but the stuff that they have put out has been really, really, really good, and it's helped a lot. Like I wouldn't have been able to do the Battle of Reach timeline in either instance without it, because it fills in a lot of gaps.
Yeah, that is one thing, right? With 343 is like for as much as criticism as there is, and a lot of it, a lot of it's fair, but
there is plenty of valid criticism.
Yeah, plenty of valid criticism. But I one thing they do seem to respect is the the expanded lore. Sometimes probably too much to a point where they just assume that we've all. Somebody like me comes into Halo 5 and it's like, what the hell is going on here? What is this?
Halo 5 had far bigger problems than connections to
it
didn't even really feel like it connected well.
It really did. It really did.
It was a jumbled mess of, well, we've got all these disparate parts. Let us just ball of tape them together and then try and fix it afterwards.
Man, I remember people would be like, man, Halo 5 is only a good game if you read all the books. I'm like, man, I've read all the books and it made it worse. I wanted so much more.
That's what I've been screaming for like the last 7 years is like, it only makes sense if you read the books. I wish that were true.
Seriously.
Well, there we go. The perfect definitive.
4 is the one. 4 you get more out of if you read the Forerunner trilogy.
Yes, you absolutely do.
You can get a lot if you find every terminal and watch each video. The terminals shouldn't have been missable because they are so integral to the plot type of thing. But
I'd say
that's the one.
You can I think you can get a good understanding of the story being told without the terminals. Yeah. But one thing I think, one way I've kind of modified my point of view more recently is the story is kind of bland without those terms, or maybe bland isn't the right word.
It doesn't have the weight to it, right?
It's definitely not the right word because I really enjoy the core story of Master Chief and Cortana. Yeah. But there's definitely a missing component. There's definitely a missing component without the terminals.
Like you can understand motivations, but like why do these motivations matter? You just have no context.
You know what? That's it. The primary story between Chief and Didact is kind of bland without those terminals. Yeah. Thank you.
And they didn't make it obvious enough that Didact and Librarian were D and L. You know what I mean? From the previous games. I feel like that would have helped a fair bit too for like the previous game players.
And of course, spacing out that huge exposition dump from the Librarian a little bit might have helped.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Hindsight is 2020, but
let's throw it all in the cutscene.
Yeah. Ultimately, Halo 4, I think, would have benefited from just that extra year, make it the Xbox One launch title they were thinking about. Yeah. But hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. And I do think they learned their lesson regarding lore connections with Infinite, in the sense that it's not really that connected, but it is still at the same time. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
You get a rich experience from knowing the expanded lore, but the game itself is very much divorced from it.
Yes,
or self-contained. That's about it's very self-contained.
Because people really like the Banished, even without having played Halo Wars 2, or even without having read any of the books they've been a part of, like Divine Wind, where they're really goddamn. That book's great, and I'm still annoyed we didn't do a book club on it. I will never forgive you, Soul.
It is never too late.
But I think that is the difference between games and books and and even expanded TV shows is the way you sell that stuff. What's going to make a video game player generally like the character is that he looks cool in some cutscenes, or he sounds
honestly
cool, right?
Good intro.
It's generally going to be the presentation more than all the little intricacies,
really memorable moments instead of like long story arcs.
That kind of stuff works a lot better in video games than most other mediums, just because of self-engage or personal engagement.
Like Infinite, for example, starts and ends with Atriox, right? And both of those scenes are pretty like, oh damn, all right. Like it's like if you ever played WoW, it's like the end raid boss of the expansion being shown in the beginning and then being hyped up for the ending.
But yeah, to your point though, so like, and then you kind of learn that there is a lot more backstory to these Banished, right? Like if you only came to the game, you have no it's almost like a completely different enemy you're fighting. It's just this real badass that is like it's going to be Chief has got to get back to climb that hill, and it's almost like a Rocky movie more than
kind of
expanded Halo. But then you delve into the Banish, and you kind of. So I got by the way, I said I don't read and I haven't, but I did get the encyclopedia, so I'm kind of learning.
Good.
It's my cheat sheet of it. But yeah, there's a lot more. There's a lot more they can do with that, right? So it'd be. I guess we'll get into that in a little bit, but it'd be interesting to see how maybe they could do a better job tying that stuff together.
But I guess back to the original question. Sorry, Abe, that you were asking was that you're talking about the differences between how Bungie and 343 treated their lore, right?
Yeah.
So, Ian, do you ever think 343 went too far in the direction that Bungie wasn't going in? You know what I mean?
Not in the games themselves necessarily, though. Like, for as much as I've defended Halo 5 over the years, at least in terms of like how much book lore you supposedly need.
Yeah.
I like. Most of the stuff in there, the book lore is not going to help you at all, except when it comes to Blue Team. And if there was one point where 343 dove in too far, I would say it was with Blue Team, as the didact is explained in Halo 4, even if it's a bit shallow without the terminals. Most like 99% of the stuff in Halo 4 is explained, or at least the stuff that you need to know as a player to understand the story is explained. The presentation might not be as refined as it should be, but that's another discussion.
And the characters are technically still Forerunners, which are people we've known for the entire series, right?
Yep. Halo
they
5
did give
though,
that one line, they're like family about Blue Team, and that's
it.
Yeah,
couple
there's actually like some extra lines in there if you stand around during some of the weapons down scenes, like Osiris and Locke will talk about Blue Team. But I never came across anything that actually explained their presence for anyone who had always grown up with the belief or come up with the belief that Master Chief was the last Spartan, which, if you only played the games, that is probably what you're going to believe 99% of the time.
Yeah. I thought he was the last.
Case in point.
I was like, who the hell? These are like, I felt cheated. It's like, well, you can't do this. He's the last of his kind.
The funny thing too is that like Bungie, even in their own expanded lore, like the few times they got directly involved with it, like Conversations from the Universe, that the Halo 2 bonus and the Halo graphic novel, they have other Spartans out in their universe other than Master Chief. But the
back of the game, last of his kind.
Yeah. So
where did I get that? Was that the back of the game?
The back of Halo CE, I believe, had that as a tagline.
And there's a lot of. They also brought that back specifically for Halo 3. Halo 2, it seemed to have disappeared in a lot of places, at least a lot of the same places that it was in for Halo CE and Halo 3. That was kind of a funny coincidence, but. Yeah.
So I do think it seems fair that at some point the lore, the expanded lore, was almost, I don't want to say like the TV show, but it was kind of like doing its own thing a little bit, and then somewhere along the line, they decided to bring it together, right? Or do you think that it was always this plan to keep it together, but they just slightly? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, under Bungie, I don't think it's much of a secret, at least for those that have looked into the history of the Halo novels. Bungie was not a fan of the novels. They did not want. They really didn't want Fall of Reach. They didn't even want Halo: The Flood, apparently, and that only came together, at least in part, if I'm remembering my history correctly, at least, because they promised to kill off like any new character that was introduced. Which, you know, it being a novelization of Halo CE, not a hard promise to keep. That kind of already happens, which is even funnier too when you think about the fact that like the first few chapters of Halo First Strike have to bend over backwards in a lot of ways to explain why some other characters survive the Halo event along with Master Chief.
Yep. Especially like Johnson, like literal last thing we saw of Johnson was him hugging an elite for a joke
There's
ending.
no way he was supposed to get out of there. That was.
That was purely because they wanted to bring him back for Halo 2, and Nyling's like, okay, I guess I have to bullshit some way to bring him back.
They did. Did they write the story of how he got off that thing before Blue?
It's in Halo First Strike. Basically, they kind of hand wave it away in a lot of ways, but the long and short of it is he managed to find another group of survivors, like 3 or 4 of them that had a Pelican, and they escaped and got off the ring beforehand. Yeah, pretty much.
And then Poochie flew away back to his home planet.
Yeah.
But what about the Covenant he was hugging? I mean, I'm just kidding.
That was
he shot him in the face and then ran.
That comes up a lot of times, actually. It's like, wait a minute, Johnson was hugging an elite and getting his ass groped. How did he get to Halo 2? And, you know, I don't blame people for asking that question, mind you. But
classified.
I feel like even Miranda, the character, fell to Captain Keyes-off. Let's bring another Captain Keyes up in this thing, because they play kind of similar roles. You know,
they definitely wanted some consequences there. But going back to the question, the books very early on, there was only connection if it was convenient. Like the very fact, like looking back with what we know now, the fact that Halo 3 opens with references to the fall and is strewn throughout with references to Fall of Reach is almost miraculous in some ways, at least from my point of view. It's very funny looking back on that. But of course, then once you get over to the 343 era, they absolutely wanted to bring the books into the games. They wanted to have this unified universe. I was going to try and look for something else, but
it almost felt like an immediate thing for them. They took over and right away they're like, okay, here, I think Halo Legends was like what, 2012 or something. It was very soon after they took over.
It was 2009 actually.
Was it not?
Yeah, because it released originally. I think they originally released. I can't remember what order this happened in, but in 2009, they already had the Halo Waypoint app on Xbox, and they used that to release some early episodes. At least I think that was
interesting. You're right. Wikipediaing it, it's I think the full thing released February 2010. So,
it would be. And there was also they did an episode preview for, I think it was The Babysitter on Spike TV's game trailer TV. That'll show for anyone who remembers. Yeah. And it was part of it was like a clip that they did as part of an advertisement for Halo 3 ODST. It was like, oh God, talking about nostalgic. That is,
that was definitely the first episode of it I saw. So I think, yeah.
That was a huge episode because they also they talked a whole lot of Halo 4 in that, I think, as well. No, they couldn't have because I don't think it was announced yet.
Not Halo 4, but the first 2 episodes, Origins, definitely felt like they already knew a little bit of the Forerunner series, what they were trying to do with that.
They absolutely did. And then, by 2011, they were talking about bringing Blue Team in and tying things to deep lore, talking about Shield worlds. So that must 343 really wanted to do this. They thought, and I think there might have been a way to make it work. Who knows? But they wanted to do. They were doing this because fans had been wanting it for years. It was a really cool opportunity, especially a way to, I imagine, to differentiate themselves from Bungie. Which seems to be something that pushed early 343 in a lot of ways. They wanted to set their own identity, which, like I said before, I completely understand wanting to do that.
Yeah,
how it was executed is another story. but I get the motivation as much as an outsider can.
Yeah, there are issues with wanting to have like dissenting voices within the organization to try and push each other and not be.
I honestly think that's a really good idea. Yeah, there's a really
work
good
the way they ended up doing it.
Yes, execution has always been the shortcoming, I guess. I'm trying to think of better ways to phrase things.
Like when we sort of try to understand a lot of their intentions, like usually the intentions make sense. It sounds good on paper, but it absolutely does.
Yeah,
it does come down to like that execution and maybe getting everybody aligned. Eventually, at some point, you can have people with all different ideas, but they got to get on the same page and start doing something.
And the fact that they basically had to build the studio from the ground up, hiring people as they were developing ideas and making the game, I've heard that the coalition was able to take a lot of lessons from 343 when they were becoming the development house for when they become the
coalition. Almost did the opposite, right? Halo,
because they were an established studio, Black Tusk, I think it was.
Yes,
and they and Microsoft just made Todd Ferguson, I think his name is
Rod Ferguson.
Rod Ferguson, thank you.
Close.
Rod Ferguson, the head of the studio. Yeah, good for him. I was glad that he stuck out for Gears for a while and got them going. But they clearly learned lessons by then that unfortunately they just weren't able to implement for 343 and early Halo.
Well, you could even argue that they maybe they've gone too much the other way. Because Rod came in and says, we're going to make a Gears-ass Gears. It's totally Gears. We're doing it my way. Like, let's go, and they just got on and they were efficient. But I like Josh Holmes. I don't know if you heard this before, Ian, but like I heard him after he left 343. He did some interviews. He was on a podcast. I could never find the damn podcast. I don't remember what it was, but I remember listening to it. And they were asking him about it, and he said, "Yeah, with both 4 and 5, like they brought in, like what we were just saying, these they had teams of people that with different ideas." But it became a detriment because they spent like half the development cycle arguing about it, and then they would have this grandiose vision, and then they'd be left with like this much time to put that together. It's like, how are we going to cut it and fit it into that time? And it sounds like they've repeated that cycle over and over.
I found that podcast, Abe. It took me 2 seconds. Yeah. It's
Stop lying.
Game Informer podcast from 2017. The Game Informer show, Spotlight. Josh Holmes talks leaving 343 and leaving Halo behind. I bet you it's that one.
Do you think it's that one? I don't know. Yeah, okay. I'll have to look. I'm gonna.
It makes sense. I mean, even Halo 4, for example. I mean, I love the game now, but when it came out and I'm playing Slayer and I'm like, wait, are these kill streaks? What is happening?
I still don't care for calling them kill streaks, just because I feel they function so differently from at least the kill streaks of Call of Duty that
I don't play COD, so it kind of felt like it. That's about that, actually play COD.
You know what? That is fair. That is completely fair. For whatever reason, I've never opened up my mind to that point of view, but that makes sense.
I will say though, especially even today, like if I want to play a good big team battle game, I'm opening up Halo 4. The maps aren't it's all amazing, honestly. It's probably the most fun big team battle in MCC, in my opinion. It's just
if honestly, Halo 4 has got a really good foundation. You take out like the big thing for me is even once you get like get it a lot closer to core Halo. If you could just remove flinch, I think that would make Halo 4 a lot more appealing, at least to me. That's like the one thing that always annoys me, because I can get past sprints there. Oh well.
Yes. I mean,
and I'll do
it's not a game made in 2001. You know what I mean? Like,
but
speaking of
the flinch has always been please.
So, and I have no idea. I'm going to be honest with you, Ian. I have no idea what your opinions on some of these aspects are. But we know, like, let's talk about the community a little bit. So you've been part of, the content creation community. Community can be very opinionated, and I feel like it's not often that that the opinions are that positive. At least they haven't been for like a decade.
And
I'm sad to say I've contributed to that in ways that I am not always proud of.
But I mean, so like, I guess I just want to get some of your thoughts on stuff like that. So like, how's it been being part of the content creation community, the overall community? Because because obviously you're engaging with some of the most passionate fans, and I think one of the things, this is just my opinion, I don't know what you think of this, but I think one of the things that Halo really is up against all the time, it's always expectations, right? Like, if you're able to look at each thing in a vacuum. Which it's so hard to do. We were talking about this on the show too. It's like, I get it. This is supposed to be separate. It's not supposed to be the games or the books or any of that stuff. But I'm a Halo fan, and this is my expectation, and I don't like the way I'm feeling right now. And so I think that's one of the challenges. So like, I guess talk a little bit about that. What's kind of been your feeling overall with the overall community and things like that?
Oh, I mean, overall, the community, I'll say I like the community, or at least the parts of the community I choose to interact with, which is primarily the lore aspect side.
Yeah.
There are unfortunately bad aspects of the fandom. That's true of any fandom, and most recently, I've just been trying to cut that out as much as I can.
Yeah.
Mostly
it's not healthy.
Yeah,
right.
It's not healthy. I haven't talked about this publicly, but back in March, I basically had a breakdown just over Halo in a lot of ways, which sounds really stupid to people, I'm sure.
No.
But that was it. I just needed to step away for a moment after that, and some of that was stuff I saw in the community just causing me anxiety. Some of it was my own relationship with Halo and how it's evolved over the last year, even. Just so
not the best time to be a big Halo fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but luckily there are still pockets of community where you can enjoy good chat. You can enjoy just
like
no
there's one
pressure.
Thing we here our Halo podcast in general. One of the reasons why we wanted to do it in the first place was we felt that a lot of the Halo discussion online was, I don't want to use the word unfair, but toxic. You know what I mean? And needlessly so. To the point where none of us here shy away from criticizing the game and the development and 343 themselves, right? But we aim to do so in a non-fire everyone light.
Yeah.
Right? And as sad as this is to say, that was something that was kind of rare online. And you go to various Halo communities. I'm not going to name them, but if everyone's been following this podcast, they know which one I'm talking about. And for the most part, you'd go there and it'd just be full of not just, so the toxicity is one thing, but it's also just the negativity, And as someone who has been dealing with,
big thing for me.
I've been dealing with a lot of some personal mental health issues, and a lot of them range from just being really down, negative, kind of in a sense. It's just like, I play video games to have a good time, to enjoy myself, right? The last thing I want to do is suddenly engage with a group of people who just love being negative all the time on something. Man, this is terrible. Or why didn't this come out? Or wow, what are they even thinking with this? Like, I don't need to hate consume.
It's important to be able to recognize that it is important to recognize when your relationship to something has become just where it's no longer anything good for you. It's just, like you said, pure toxic.
It's not healthy.
And that's kind of where I got it back in March with myself and with the community. It was just a place, it was not good for me, and I needed to step away.
Yeah.
We've said before, like, there's some points where you realize if it's been like over a decade since you've liked something, maybe that thing just isn't for you.
That's
anymore.
actually where I really wanted to go for. And that happened to me for Mass Effect a while ago. I've since come back around on it. At least some of the older stuff with the Legendary editions or the Legendary Collections release. But like right after Mass Effect 3 and a particularly terrible book, I just could not stand the franchise anymore, even when I tried to engage with it. So I left. I stopped engaging with it. Same with Destiny, actually. It took me a bit longer. I did end up getting a little toxic the few times I engaged with it, but it became for Destiny 1 and 2, they just became games I did not like. I was not enjoying myself. So unsubscribe from the subreddit and step away.
Destiny is a dance.
And back in March.
Out.
Back in March, I unsubscribed from the Halo subreddit and just uninstalled Twitter from my phone for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
And it was great. Just to step away.
And
Get myself clear.
That's why you just go on the forums.xboxera.com and we don't allow that.
yeah. Good point, Jesse. Nice plug too.
Well, I mean, Soul spends a lot of time at Reddit, so
I do. I unsubscribed a while ago, but I still hate read every once in a while. That place.
I'll try low sodium Halo. That's a
I'm actually
very
subbed
nice
there
place.
for a while. I've been there for a while.
And I'll be honest, like it's somebody, and it's like a meme at this point. I
doesn't know how to read.
Yeah, I don't know how to read. I played Halo 5 for 2,000 hours in multiplayer, and I played so far. I played Infinite
only
2,000 plus. Yeah, so far I played over 400 of Halo Infinite, and but at the same time, there's a lot. Like there's a lot I could go into detail, and all of us here know. Anybody who's knowledgeable knows the opportunities, the missteps, even. Like even this week, I'm like, snipers, really? Like this is, anyways. But it's like another topic.
It's not a sniper.
Yeah, it's not a sniper. Come on, this is you had one job. But anyways, I won't do that. But so there is opportunities, and you can give fair feedback. But the thing is, at the end of the day, to what you're saying, if that is all you ever are doing all the time, at some point maybe you just go, this ain't for me anymore or something. But it's just not, I don't know. But anyways,
you need to recognize when you need to step away from something.
Yeah. And sometimes you just need a break. It's like
just
some relationships. Sometimes I have friends. I just like, dude, like, I hope you go get a girlfriend or something, dude, because I've just had enough. It's like, but all right, we're getting chasing some real tangents there. So we talked a little bit about some nostalgia. I guess real quick, I want to ask you, what is your favorite Halo game of all time?
Oh, damn.
At the moment, it remains Halo 3 ODST. Is the best combination of characters, level design. The gameplay is really fun. Like I have some issues with Halo 3's gameplay, but it is so much fun to go back and replay all the time, and that extends to ODST. And just the character writing is so good. Now, actually, on top of that too, there's also what is it? The Sadie story, side story.
Yes,
one's a really good story, and two, actually, it's a really good story. It's a very fun hunt. And I think this is the coolest thing, because I don't think there's been anything else that's done this except for Halo 3 ODST, and that's if you complete the
terminals.
If you complete the terminals, Sadie's story, it actually changes the game, only slightly, but it actually changes the game. And that's kind of cool. It actually has an impact.
Yeah, that's one thing I'll tell you right now is that is not the most popular opinion on this podcast.
Oh, I bet.
But
also
we're all over.
Firefight. I'm in love with Firefight, and
it is the opinion of our site co-founder, Nick Baker. I don't know his last name. I think he loves ODST.
Publicly, it's
man of culture.
Well, we have to be careful. Don't give him a big head. Don't give him a big head.
I think
usually his gaming opinions are bad. That's why we go on the
Not
podcast
usually,
to try to
always.
I see what you mean though. ODST, when I played on my own and I took my time with it and I got all the terminals and I kind of really like fell into the atmosphere, I really enjoyed. But in like my recent replay through like a year ago, while I was playing with some friends, we finished it in 2.5 hours. And it was kind of just like, okay, I guess that's done. Let's go on to the next.
That was a huge criticism back in the day, is how short the game can be.
We got the achievement for finishing it on time without even trying. We were just playing the game.
I will say I do respect that opinion, though. Because there is a lot of things about ODST that are good. I think the biggest issue is that it doesn't feel as grand as a core.
And that's
Halo
actually
game.
a reason why I like it too, is because it's so down to earth. It feels like a nice change up. It's usually my favorite. I said this earlier. I'm pretty sure my favorite aspect of not just sci-fi though, but stories usually, or universes, I should say.
Yeah,
is the less focused on parts. Like one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek is Lower Decks, because not the new show, but the original TNG episode, because that focuses on just random characters that you otherwise never see. It's why I like the Ryan Forge trilogy, because it's an aspect of Halo's universe you never see.
Interesting.
Like this is a topic later for the show, but I think that this is like a really good segue. So we'll have to come back to some of the other things.
Wait, really quick before that segue, what was the sprint segue? How did that relate to the Halo community? I'm curious.
Oh, well,
The Halo community hates sprint.
Oh
Yeah,
yes, okay. I'm thinking like, are you sprinting
Or at
away
least-
from them? Like, what is happening? Oh,
like,
that.
do
Makes
I
certainly
really? He's Soul is so young. You really have to spell things out. I'm just kidding. Oh, so anyways.
Okay, what was the new segue? My bad. I kind of ruined the segue.
Speaking of sprint, yeah, it's great. What's the problem? I used to be very anti-sprint, but then it grew on me, and as I said,
it's all about implementation. And
yeah,
Halo 5, though, especially Halo Infinite now, I think have implemented sprint probably the best way you could in Halo.
Yeah.
Straight up, about as good as you can get. Yeah,
Yep.
as in you
I'm
don't
totally
really
happy
need
with
to.
words. I can't see them going
Especially
back.
with Halo
It's
Infinite. Oh my
it's
God,
a specific use when it's worth it. Otherwise, it's just not, because it's not much faster. And there aren't that many times you really need it.
It's just a slide button for me. That's it.
It makes you, you do the running slide. It makes you feel agile.
No,
Oh, it does its job for how slow it is compared, or how little
Less
of a
of a
boost
speed.
it get. For how little of a speed boost it gives you, it feels pretty fast, or it feels pretty good to sprint regardless, which it's an amazing balance.
Yeah, and I've been getting used to the super slides, and man, I go flying sometimes. I'm like, wow, okay, all right. Where's my team?
And I see Hytham G in chat says, I don't get why the Halo community hates sprint. Hytham G, it's because so many people in that community just hate any type of change.
Well, yeah, it's change. It goes to what we were just talking about before, though. It's the expectations, right? This is Halo. This is the book I read. Don't screw with it. I think that's. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think too, it's just the fact it wasn't implemented very well in Halo Reach or in Halo 4. The first two outings did not give a good impression. It's kind of the same thing with Spartan 4s. They just did not have a very good introduction.
You would start a Reach match, all you hear is a bunch of panting from the first.
That is so true. God, it's like I don't know if this is what you're referencing, but after a while, like it just became where people were doing that into their mics. And that would be the lobby. No. Yeah, like people were doing that like on the screen while the match is loading. Or just at the beginning of the match, they'd start doing that. I don't know how widespread it was, but it did start happening. Like,
it was always
in the games.
Crazy just how out of shape they assume Spartans must be, because the moment they start running, they're panting, and Chief can't do it for more than 5 seconds.
The funny thing is they implemented that loud breathing in order, so that players could hear it, and two, in response to players having issues with the implementation in the beta,
Interesting. I didn't know that.
So there's reason behind it, but as we kind of were talking about a little earlier, implementation was the issue.
Yeah. I totally agree, and I didn't care for it in either one of those games. But
honestly, I think Reach is just the worst because the maps are still bigger for sprint.
Yeah.
But it's one of 5 abilities you can have. Yeah. So if you don't choose sprint and you're like, especially if you're like BTB or invasion, I'll just slowly get to where I'm going.
Does that even make sense? Like, I can't, I love
when they explained that the armor abilities were like cannon modules, I was so pissed. I'm like, well, how is sprint? How is being able to dodge roll a thing that I need to plug into my back?
At least Halo 5 gave like the thrusters in the back. It's like your sprint is you're using the thrusters moving forward, right?
Yeah. At least there's like some visual to justify the lore there. Because the sprint module is still a thing in lore. That is still a thing. It's just a standard part of Mjolnir now. Or at least it started.
This is where they got the idea for the TV show, but instead of suppressing emotions, they suppress their ability to sprint.
Jesus.
Oh God.
Oh, right.
So what was that segue you were
Yes, I'm curious.
Well, you know what? We can. It's like I feel like now we should come back to. But no, you were talking about the ODST template. That's interesting because I was, when we were going to talk about a little bit, I wanted to get some of your feelings on, where 343 is with the story now, the lore now, Halo Infinite, but not just Halo Infinite, but kind of like where what we got in December, but where this game can go and what we kind of like to see or project to see. ODST is kind of interesting because I think there is something you can take from that moving forward, right? Like we talk about how expansive the world is, how many places you can go in there. and you can take some chances, right? Like there is, and you can do it in bite-sized segments. You don't have to go all in with a 5-year development type of game, and because obviously you can take less risks there. So I'm just kind of curious, like, so you've played Halo Infinite. What's some of your thoughts right now on where the franchise and the lore is? I also want to get some of your thoughts on Infinite story itself, like what you like and don't like about where that went.
Well, I'll say in general, Halo Infinite very clearly shows the lessons of Halo 4 and 5 learned in a lot of ways. I think, as I said earlier, it seems a lot more inviting to new players than any, probably more than any Halo game ever, actually. Because, like I said earlier, I started with Halo 2. I was confused as hell when that game booted up. Even once I finally got to play it from the beginning, I still was confused about what was going on and who's this Arbiter? Why should I care for him? And yada yada. Halo Infinite does a really good job at bringing out its characters, its characterization, and telling a story that I think is simple enough to follow, but with a lot of potential depth if you are familiar with the EU, which is the balance I want struck. So in that regard, Halo Infinite delivered. Could it have done different things or better things? Yeah, we could spend all day on that, but it set out to tell a particular story, and it told that story in a way that I felt was effective and well told, I guess. So in that regard, Halo Infinite was a success at the very least. And looking forward, there's a lot of really good potential. You were talking about the Halo Encyclopedia earlier. That one seems to confirm, or at least heavily hints at, a theory that fans have had about the new what is it called? The new Endless. The Zalanin. There you go. Thank you. And it confirms something that people have been thinking about the Endless, that they are connected to the precursors, and it's very heavy-handed in their the suggestion that they are. So that could mean a lot of various fan theories. Maybe I had a theory that they might be immune to the Flood, and let's see if the Flood ever come back. Maybe it'd be great to see them in the Zalanin having some kind of story. Like we got to use the Zalanin to defeat the Flood now or something like that. Who knows? There's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of interesting directions they could take it. And even on top. Yeah, no, please go ahead. I was about to talk about something else.
Cortana name dropped the Flood too in the game.
Yeah, she does.
So that was
which is the first time we've basically got it in a 343 game, like the specific name dropped, possibly.
Like they're on this ring.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember if they were mentioned. Well, they were mentioned in Halo 4, but that's because
Halo 4 is definitely mentioned. Yeah,
yeah, in a different context.
You were talking about how Infinite had moments where it's like if you knew the EU, they'd hit harder, and holy crap, did it have those moments.
Yes, it did.
The one that stuck out for me was, of course, the password, right? Before he
my
the
God.
deletion thing. I'm like, wow, this is so cool.
That was just like the Ali Oxenfree moment in Halo 5 for me. It was like this really cool callback to this deep lore cut that it works. It works for you if you know nothing, but once you do know what that's all about, oh my God.
Yep.
And I was lucky enough I got to review it, and I was playing it early, and I was just sitting on that, unable to tell these guys about things like that. That hit for weeks, and that one hit me one of the hardest. I was very happy when Soul immediately picked it up after playing.
Things like that specific scene, it's not just that it's a cool callback, right? It's that they've clearly put it there, and it builds character for a character that's already been developed for so long. It's like, hey, Chief, Master Chief, this killing machine, this unfeeling robot, some people think of him as, is still holding on to these things, right? He's just not letting it show outwardly. And then, of course, you have
it's not an empty reference. It's something meaningful.
God, that was so good. And I really hope Infinite continues to kind of build on that for the EU.
The way I see Infinite going, and I wonder how much it will chop into the greater universe telling, because it really seems like they want your multiplayer character to be you're going to become someone in the Infinite story.
Yes.
Like, eventually, it seems like you're going to end up on the ring, and those will probably be like smaller expansions while they work on the bigger Chief ones. Yep. And I do wonder how will they reconcile that, because it's your character. So do they just make a character that is the representative of people's multiplayer character for if they ever put them in books or anything? I'm curious because I mean it's so individualized when you're playing, but obviously it can't be when you're reading it.
Yeah, I'm thinking they'll probably, at least what I would hope they would do would be something more or less like Fireteam Crimson. So you have your Spartan that's maybe he's attached to I should say maybe they're attached to a team like Crimson, or maybe they're a lone wolf operator, or you know what, maybe 343 finds a way to make it interesting. Or to change up that format, which would be really good because not Guild Wars.
FF14 does it, I think, fairly decent. Your character is the Warrior of Light, and I haven't played it. Well, I've tried playing it numerous times. It's a very boring beginning, very boring beginning. But from what I know, your character, the Warrior of Light, is actually referenced in most of the cutscenes. They just have like a default model for him. For them.
Wait, I just mean more in the sense of like because it's so individualized and stylized when you're playing the game. Because in the books, then it just has to be a character they make. So it can't represent you.
Yeah. So ideally, then when it comes to books and other expanded media, they would never feature this.
Yeah.
They could absolutely reference it. Just make sure you don't pull a Halo New Blood and give it a gendered mention. I'm going to preach this whenever I can. One of the worst things 343 did in terms of lore, in my opinion, is actually canonizing Noble Six's gender. Is it basically invalidates
Noble Six's gender?
Yeah, he is canonically male.
What?
Yeah,
no, I thought the whole.
Yeah, it defeats the whole purpose. Exactly. Yeah, what the heck? You're going through what I went through when this happened. It's what? Yeah, exactly.
Why did they had no reason to do that?
Yeah. Now, in 343's defense, that was a decision originally made under Bungie, but 343 could have decided not to make that, add that to officially published material, or maybe could have made a counter statement because essentially Bungie's statement about Halo: The Fall of Reach was forget about it. And 343 kind of reversed that. So
I was thinking the Rookie for some reason, but the Rookie was canonically male from the beginning, from the get-go, right? Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that's like one of the great things about Noble Six is that they were, at least initially, there was no canon gender. So like literally anybody in the audience could impose themselves onto it. You know, like one of the drawbacks of like characters like Master Chief and the Rookie is that, well, they are white and male, which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's harder for non-white, non-male people to project themselves onto that, or it's going to be harder for them to get the same experience as someone who is white and male. Who knows? Yeah. And you know, that's not speculation. That's not speculation. I've heard that from people. I don't know how widespread it is, but it is something that people have said to me. So
no, I mean, at least personally, whenever I start a game, the first thing I do is switch over to a brown tint, just because, like, I don't know, it just feels right to me. You know what I mean? Like,
and that's great when games let you do that.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Basically, if they really are going to make our multiplayer Spartans a bigger part of the universe outside of these narrative events that they've tried, or that they're trying right now for season 2, if we get like something more akin to campaign content, please don't gender the characters if you ever mention them in the EV.
Honestly, the simplest way is probably just to reference it, be like, hey, we have this Spartan doing this mission, blah, 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 and just kind of talk about the results or the aftermath, whatever.
Yeah, like if they gave us like a Spartan designation, maybe like a numbered, but never a name. And they're
or just make sure like reference the operations that they're on. Like, you know, call like, let's say as an example, you have a DLC and it's called Operation Kick-Ass, Operation Kick-Ass, whatever. Then, you know, like you have some, I couldn't think of anything clever.
Operation Northman, and you get all ripped and you're a Viking.
I was looking for a Norse like reference. There you go. Fine. Operation Norseman. Our Spartan goes to the northern end of Halo and gets ripped.
And they
they just go over to a book or a comic and they mention, you know, Operation Kick-Ass or Northman, whatever.
It could be like
or Operation Odin,
Yeah, and canonically, they could make it a team because I imagine whatever multiplayer missions will be part of will probably be a multiplayer thing, you know, a co-op thing as well.
Co-op will actually exist by then.
You do fire. You basically have Fireteam Crimson all over again.
Yeah,
I think they kind of sadly cut that possibility out just because all of our Spartans are all new. But you know, whatever.
Yeah. I was watching your Halo footage, Jesse, and man, I just wanted to play the game again. I cannot wait for co-op to come back, man.
Co-op
supposed to be
that review
at the end of season 2.
That was fun to make.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yep.
let's see.
They did say we were getting a co-op
Flighting?
like preview. We're getting flighting, so you would imagine that's probably going to be soon if it's coming out in August. So
I'm glad that's coming. I'm fearful it's still going to be Chief clones though.
I think they basically
they were all in the in their roadmap. There were 4 chiefs sitting in a warthog.
Yeah, that's what I saw, and I'm like, oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah.
I do wonder if that's for Infinite, and if they do get our multiplayer Spartans to the ring, then they can build it around having.
If that's something that can come, if that's something that can come later, making like co-op the co-op characters, your multiplayer Spartans.
Yeah,
I'm fine with waiting for that. I just hope that something like that does come.
Did you skewer a grunt?
Boring.
Yes, he kept shooting.
That seems unnecessary.
No, that is entirely necessary. They were shooting, and
I have a goddamn electrical gun, and it just kept hitting me. And I'm on legendary, so it really hurts.
He saw what I had. He knew the risks.
One thing I really want is my vehicle customization. So I want them in the campaign. Wonder if they'll ever do that.
I would be surprised if they didn't, since that like vehicle, any sort of customization. Hell, even just the ability to not just mod your multiplayer character in, but actually play as your multiplayer character with a cool feature.
Well, and these things
have all that customization in there.
I don't want to say these are easy because I don't know the.
No. I definitely don't want to imply that.
But they do seem like easy wins in the sense that if you put stuff like in there, people would get really excited about that. And I think that
I agree with you there. They are absolutely easy wins. There are things that people would be absolutely interested in seeing and already are based on the on certain mod trends.
Yeah. And really, Halo could probably set the bar there where, in a way that, because it's been a while. I gotta be careful how I put this because I absolutely love the sandbox of Infinite, but I think it's been a while since Halo's really had an impact on the industry the way it did with CE, with 2 and 3, and even with ODST's firefights and things like that. So like it's really it consistently had these things they would add to the games where it would be sort of a bar setter, whether it was Forge in Halo 3, whether it was matchmaking in Halo 2. I think that's an area where Halo Infinite could set a bar, right? Like the tying together of multiplayer and single player. I know Destiny does that too, but I think in just a different way, because I think the Halo campaigns do feel different than what a Destiny.
Isn't Destiny's multiplayer just, hey, we're fighting each other to get better?
Yeah,
each other?
And we're all immortal if our
ghosts don't die. It's not the same. I feel like Halo could really do something special there. But so I want to ask you this, Ian, because we talked about the expanded lore. We talked about some of the potential for for Halo to do spin-off type things. Now, this might be unrealistic because they might just stay on a very streamlined path here. But if Infinite were to go to any other place in the universe, something that in the expanded universe that's never been part of the games, etc., where would you like to see them go in a spin-off game? If you could,
Maithrillian, easily. The Forerunner homeworld for anyone who's unfamiliar with that name. Which I love that name, Maithrillian. Maeth, Maithrillian. And I love that because it sounds like something straight out of like the Tolkien mythos.
Yeah, it does.
But
it's more fantasy than sci-fi.
At least, yeah. But that feels very right for Forerunners, though.
Yeah, it does.
But yeah, I'd love to visit that. It's this giant space station. It's essentially a planet that's been like sliced vertically, and split out. So you have all these discs that can eventually close up back into a planet, like in defensive mode. So now it would be in a horribly destroyed state, but I think it'd be really cool to go there. And who knows, we actually might, because there with if the endless are indeed connected to the precursors, that you could connect that back to the domain and Abaddon, who was this precursor AI that helped the Forerunners connect to the domain back in the day. And there's a whole story with him, short story with him getting kind of reset and yada, yada, yada. But my point is, like, there's a lot of really good, there's good lore reason to go there. And I've been wanting to go there for a long time. In fact, a lot of lore fans thought back in the day that we were going to go to Reach in order to get coordinates to Maithrillian, because they actually seeded back in the lore for Halo Ground Command. I think it was. It's either Halo Ground Command or Halo Fleet Battles. It might have been Fleet Battles actually, but they seeded that the Forerunner ship on Reach might have coordinates for Maithrillian. So
sounds like you could make an interesting Metrovania out of that. Like you said, what it changes around a little bit or moves.
Well, I mean, Forerunner tech can do a lot of crazy shit, but just imagine like a bunch of imagine a planet that's been sliced up so it can kind of open up if it had like a central.
Jesse did put a picture up.
Yeah, I've got it up if you want to look at it.
Oh yeah. There is official art.
Oh
yeah.
There we go.
Also, for those wondering, Ground Command and Fleet Battles were board games. I did not know Halo even had board games. All right, well, I'm learning a lot.
Oh my god! I actually was just at. We just had Adepticon over in Schaumburg, here in Illinois, and there's always a group of Fleet Battles and Ground Command folk that try to keep the community alive at the events. And I just getting to hang out with that crew again was really fun. Really fun.
Actually, yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. But in general, I 100% agree with you. And I know it's frustrating, not frustrating. It's tough for, I think, 343 to really dive into the Forerunner stuff, because a lot of it does kind of reference these 3 really heavy sci-fi books, which are not easy reads. You know what I mean? But holy crap, it is such an interesting,
but I get it.
Such an interesting area, such an interesting setting. Man, I'd love for them to expand more. One thing we talk about a lot on here is we're like, hey, if Halo could spin off to any other game, what would it be? And man, my answer has always been, and other people's answer, the same thing, an RPG set during the Forerunner saga. Like, how cool would that be?
I've always loved the idea. Yeah. I've always liked that. I've always leaned towards the playing your own Spartan 4, which could potentially still happen. Yeah. But I like the idea of doing that in the Forerunner era as well. I always liked the idea of an RTS set or an RTS trilogy, ideally, that covers from the Human Covenant or the Human Forerunner War, and would include some deep lore cuts all the way up to the firing of Halos over the course of a trilogy. That would be the dream.
The Covenant, like their hierarchy and their system and their mutations and stuff would be perfect for setting up RPG classes.
Oh my god,
there's so much potential there.
Especially if you're doing if you're doing a post-war.
Abe has no idea what I just said.
No, I have no idea. I'm just gonna
don't worry. Basically, they're
pretty much you get a
the
set
Covenant
path,
is perfectly set up for an RPG setting. Is the best way. I think the simplest way.
The Forerunners go pretty much like you're going to be this, and then you start going through these mutations, and you can this, and you could make really good RPG style archetypes out of that.
Yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, you could have your character change and mutate based on your skill tree advancing, representing the mutations Forerunners go through.
Yep, the building blocks are already there.
Yeah, that's really cool, guys. Damn.
Well, a Mass Effect type of spin-off from Halo is something I've been hoping for a while.
Instead of just being nice or mean and getting red marks on your skin, you just start.
You get red marks on your helmet.
It's the horns in Fable.
The only issue is, man, that would be a massive undertaking.
It would have to be. But that again, we're going to spin off into a whole nother show.
That's why ideas are great and scope creep is a thing.
Yes. Yeah.
So let's I want to make sure, and I know we're already we're already over
an hour 20.
Hour 20. Yeah. So I definitely want to touch on the show because Ian, I think you've done a really good job. I went back and looked at some of your content, and how you related and kind of what you think's coming up, which was interesting. Especially, we talked earlier about the reach, right? And it looks like.
Unintended.
There's a lot of places we can go here in a moment, but I want to just get your overall thoughts on the show, both as just a fan, quality, and then I guess we could talk about where it can go, and if this is something that you think can still be something that's going to keep the Halo fan engaged over time. So I guess I'll just get some of your general thoughts on it. We've been rating them every week. There was a split between our group, honestly. I probably the most. I'm Mr. Halo CE, so I'm like, yeah, that's not my Halo hashtag, whatever. But at the end of the day, I did still have some fun with it. But there was a lot of things that bugged me. Other guys in this panel were actually a lot more positive. Scored it in the high 8s, I think, is where some of you guys some were at. But what was your thoughts on the show and kind of where you're at as it ended?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's No, I'm not going to say that part. That's negative, and I don't want to focus on that.
You love Kwan Ha. I think we all agree.
Oh yes, I love Kwan Ha. She is the best character. In fact, if we can just cut out everything other than Kwan for season 2,
her arc was
perfect. The Halo TV show had a lot of interesting ideas that weren't always executed on in the most favorable ways. But I found plenty of things to enjoy about it, mostly through comparing it to core canon. And, not in as I said in those videos, not in a negative way, just in this is fascinating to see how they reinterpreted certain things. The end of the season, though, as the end of the season was gearing up, I was getting really into it. The Kwan episode, as much as we joked a moment ago, I actually really liked I liked the Kwan episode.
It was the only time we needed to see her because everything else was just filler to get to that.
Yes, unfortunately it was. And I really, one of my big hopes for season 2 is they use Kwan and especially Soren much better, much more integral, and not just walking around for most episodes until we finally got a plot dump.
But Kwan was really great at getting her family killed.
And anyone near her killed, basically.
Yes. But yeah, I was warming up with a lot of it, and a lot of episode 9 is really good.
I'm guessing you don't like the very ending, right? Like the decision they made with the whole Cortana stuff.
I don't mind that. It's just that the very end of the episode kind of just gets. The best word I guess is clunky for me.
Yeah.
I was actually really emotionally invested when Chief was accepting Cortana and she took full control. That I thought was actually really well done. The actors in that scene did really well.
Oh yeah.
But there's some really good action right after that. So I guess it's really not that the ending's clunky. It's just the very, very end. I guess the show just kind of comes to a weird ending for me.
What do you mean? Also, you can be free to thoughts, don't worry. I've watched your videos. I know you're not a show hater.
I'm trying to articulate. I'm just trying to get the right words into my mouth.
Wanted more.
Yeah, I definitely wanted more. That is something I make clear.
I think it felt limited. I think it felt like the most limited by their shooting schedule out of all of them, and they didn't. Yeah. You can say maybe they didn't react the best because they had almost a whole year off, but in between shooting, and who knows what the schedule was on when they did or didn't do stuff. And the ending of the season almost reached that. This feels like a very good ending, but there needed to be just something a little more.
And I think that what it was for me was it just felt like Hidden Spirit kind of said this from what I understand. It didn't really feel like a lot was accomplished in this season. Yeah. That's the big issue.
Okay.
Maquis is dead at the end of the season, and I doubt that it didn't feel like she was integral to the Master Chief's storyline at all.
The only thing I can think of is she was connected to the domain at the end. Maybe her consciousness is still in there.
Yeah.
And she
there could be ways for it
that way.
I see what you mean.
The whole journey was finding these artifacts and losing them and then getting them back.
Yeah. And then, of course, Quan's story never connects back to the main story.
Right.
That was genuinely annoying, especially after episode 7 had all this good setup for something really cool.
Yeah. In our group, I think all of us are basically certain that the final shot of the show would be of the Halo ring and them on it. So I was still looking into this going episode 9. Man, are they glassing Reach in this episode or what? Are we and then we didn't get any of that, right? And that was a little bit of to use D&D's words. God damn, I forgot the words. Something about subverting expectations. There we go.
Yeah.
And not always
expectations, all right.
Not always in a good way.
Yeah.
For sure. And you're right. The show ended, and for a lot of people, the season didn't accomplish much from X happened, X was done, we accomplished X point of view.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of world building. There's a lot of character development. but the characters don't, or the character development doesn't always seem to connect back to the core story that's being told.
Right.
It's kind of 2/3 of the way into the story arc.
Yes.
If the story arc is getting
I ended
to
that episode
Halo,
and said, that's it?
Yeah.
I audibly said that's
it was a really good episode end, but for a story arc end, it's not anywhere near it. So it's like
for a season end, it was
we know what the arc is going to be. So not getting anywhere near there was surprising.
Yeah.
Now,
I think that's kind of where I kind of fell with it, and it was. I like, and I don't know if it's like I'm just too close to Halo, and as a Halo person, yeah, it's like you just did this whole thing, and
You did
where
marry
we're at,
your Cortana body pillow.
What's up? Oh yeah.
You-
Oh wait, so we're allowed to have body pillows here.
Of course, they're encouraged around here.
yeah.
Garrus especially.
No, that one might be too risque.
But
YouTube's
that's
pretty good with it now. You can show boobs and everything.
Oh really? But
You can show a lot more than that, but let's not dive down there.
yeah. But I think that's like the thing with the show, and I wonder how I would have thought about the show had I not been somebody that's been plugged into Halo before. Because as a Halo person, it feels like you went almost nowhere. You introduced, But as somebody who's if you're not connected, you did introduce the characters in the world, and ta-da! Like you open all this stuff up, and now
It's kind
I
of
guess
all
we're
it
gonna
is,
see where it's
though.
going. Yeah. But for all the problems that I had going through, with Maki, for example, I didn't care for that angle at all. With most things, now here
Just
you are.
jealous.
Yeah, no, not really. Now here you are at the very end of the season, and it's like, and you got new writers coming in, right? You got all the
New
feedback.
showrunner.
It's like you almost did this pilot and you just kind of went all the way around. And you're just like, now you can take it and do whatever you want with it. You can go towards the books if you'd like. You could go towards the games. You could go just continue to do your own thing, because they almost where they're now at. You basically have a robotic ass Master Chief, and you still haven't landed on Halo. You still
He's
don't
friendly
really
with
know.
Cortana now.
Yeah.
You still don't know who the Covenant really are that much, and you have these characters, but we could end up seeing the fall of Reach, which is something you talked about, right? At the end of your content. So I don't know if you want to like delve into that, kind of like where you think it might be going.
Oh,
and
yes.
maybe some of the opportunities there.
Because for the criticisms that we've levied here tonight, and then have been levied in general, the end of season 1 actually leaves the show in what I would argue is probably a pretty good position, at least good in terms of potential. Because especially with everything pointed towards the fall of Reach happening in season 2, there's a lot of potential to maybe win back some viewers who weren't entirely pleased with the way season 1 ended, or even the execution of season 1, and possibly just make Halo a much more interesting show overall, which I think it does bear noting that the show was successful overall. I just hope that they can find a better way to a better balance between trying out new ideas and the integration of the lore, I guess.
Yeah.
Basically, season 2, I just want to say that season 2 leaves the show in a really good position. And you know what? There are a lot of shows that take a few seasons to get good. Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine both take a couple seasons to kind of find their footing. The Constantine show on NBC, for me, never got good until like the last few episodes, and because it felt like it felt like I was finally seeing Constantine on screen, and they were
Even
like embracing some of the weirder parts of that lore.
Even The Expanse, I'd argue, wasn't a phenomenal show until like 2 or 3 episodes into the second season, where I'm like, holy crap, this is amazing sci-fi.
Yeah,
it
seems like it just seems to be a thing with sci-fi shows in general. Maybe this applies to other shows, but it seems like they take a season to find their footing, figuring out what they want to do.
If you go watch Mandalorian season 1, I stand by it. It's okay. It's pretty good. It's got a cute baby.
I couldn't
Other
finish
than
it.
that, it's
I will admit
season 2 gets good, but yeah, season 1.
I'll say I have a lot of I really liked season 1, but admittedly, it's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm perfectly open to the idea, and
Just
I'm perfectly
nowhere near 2.
I imagine that a lot of the reception to it, and even for myself, was just because of how low, like the low point that Star Wars was at that time when it came out. It was just being classic Star Wars was enough to make people really fall in love with it, regardless of its overall quality. And like I said, I think it's probably a pretty good season no matter what. But
back to the show for a second. You know, a part of me when they didn't do Fall of Reach, which a lot of people thought they would, I was disappointed for a bit. But now, sorry, not now, but afterwards, I thought, I'm like, man, are they going to give it like the full time it deserves? Because that's pretty exciting, right? Because they set up, they already foreshadowed the glassing, right? They showed it on screen for a reason. Madrigal's probably not getting glass if it contains a portal, just by going by Covenant things, and we know they know where Reach is, considering Maki got away and probably gave that information away, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff.
And the artifacts are headed to Reach now, so
exactly. So they have reason to attack them. If we're talking about our complaints of the Halo show, my biggest complaint throughout the entire series wasn't the changes with Halsey, wasn't the changes with the UNSC. It was that they didn't show the scale of the war. Right. And even throughout the entire thing, I'm like, man, this entire war, humanity's in the back foot. They're getting obliterated. And they started showing it a little bit with the glassing and a little bit more with them getting like destroyed or whatnot, or the sheer amount of the Covenant. But they didn't really show the scale. So I really, really hope next season we get like a giant space battle that shows humanity getting destroyed. You know?
I'd say, like, honestly, I'd say just, hopefully. And, you know, just like, I'd say, in my mind, you like have a big CG sequence, big expensive sequence at the start of season 1. That's your like, and like pull some inspiration from the first chapter of Fall of Reach. Have the Spartans going in doing some badass shit as you reintroduce them, but then it turns out it wasn't enough. The Covenant glasses the planet, and they have to pull back. Midway through the season, you have like some other big sequence to remind people of the power of the Covenant. And then at the very end, you of course have the big CG fest that is Fall of Reach, and in between, try and find some ways to imply the horrors of the war, so you can save on that budget, and make those the moments where you actually show it all the more impactful.
Because the other changes weren't that bad for me. Like one thing I noticed after episode 9 was a lot of the changes to the Spartan program I kind of equate to the changes they made of Halsey's character. Right. Anyone who's read the books and the lore knows that Halsey, for all her faults, would never abandon John or her Spartans. And by her Spartans, I mean the twos, really. The moment episode 9 had the line where she's like, I don't care about John. I'm like, that's it. This is it. This is the dividing factor between the suppressants, between removing their memories, blah, blah, blah. It's because this Halsey doesn't give a crap about these people. You know what I mean?
This is Halsey as the monster people had imagined her.
Exactly. And it doesn't look like, I know we had a scene of her picking up Miranda, but episode 9 kind of shows she doesn't really care. And that's interesting. I'm actually not against that.
No, I agree. Yeah. It is not what I'd ever want from core canon Halsey, obviously, but
a different take.
It is a different take. I think it works.
And that one at least makes some sense, right? From a storytelling standpoint. So like for me, and that was the thing with it. It's like I was fine with certain aspects, Master Chief not having his helmet on, whatever. Like that didn't, like I get that from a storytelling standpoint.
It would be dumb to have it on all the time in a real world setting.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think there's certain things that you could at least justify from, hey, this is going to help us like tell our story. The things that, I guess the thing where I push back more, it's like, well, why did you make that change? Like at the end of the day, a lot of the hype for Halo comes from Halo fans. It's just a fact, right? So I do think that putting in some fan service, or not just changing things just to prove that, hey, we're going to ignore all you guys. Like I think that there, to what you were saying, Ian, there's probably a balance there, right? Like we expect some things to be tweaked. We expect maybe some characters embody multiple characters. They do that. That happens, right? In a lot of book to, or a lot of expansive lore going to the screen.
In adaptation, you sometimes have to narrow things down just so you can tell the story on the new medium.
Yep, and especially if you're not going to spread out your story over 20 episodes a season and all this other stuff. You don't have the time to do all that. So I get that stuff. I guess I just want, I hope that at least in spirit it feels it, especially with the Fall of Reach, because to going back to some of the things you were saying earlier, that is the thing that's held up amongst the Halo Halo fan base,
and it is a pivotal moment regardless of how familiar you are with
Yeah.
lore or Halo. It is just that it is like that key part of the Halo mythos. That's
Yep.
yeah.
I
So-
would say don't expect drastic changes in how they're doing things. You'll just set yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, I'm going in the same kind of the same way. Once season 2 was announced, or no, sorry, once it was formally announced that the TV show would be its own timeline, I said, okay, throw out any expectations I had. I'm just going to go in and judge the show for itself.
For me,
that's what I did. That's what I'm gonna go for season 2.
Those chief. A couple episodes in, I'm like, okay, so there's game chief, book chief. These are not, sorry, game chief, show chief. These are not the same characters. I made that distinction in my head, and I'm like, this is fine. So now show chief is developing himself throughout the entire series, which I think personally that was the biggest not development, but the biggest thing the season did, just season 1, was develop Chief as a character. And I think that might have been even like basically the focus of the whole thing, from being a mindless killing machine at the beginning to sacrificing his life at the ending. And in my opinion, I had a big theory about this, kind of giving into the grief and to the sadness of losing someone he might have loved. I'm not sure. And I think by season 2, whenever they eventually resurrect him, we'll see kind of a more, I don't want to use the word grounded, but a more stable, not even the word stable, that's
balanced, perhaps.
Yes. A more, not full of himself. God dang it. What word am I looking for?
More confident, Master Chief.
Yeah, confident, but there's a dumb word, man, that fits what I'm trying to say.
Okay. I'm not
English.
Sure. Sorry.
But a chief that knows himself, right? A chief that's not finding himself anymore. A chief that says, this is who I am. This is what we're doing. I'm sure we'll still find development of him, but I do think season 2.
The chief that's made peace with his past. There, like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Essentially, the video game chief.
Well, and that's the thing, like to like we were just saying, like where they left it off, you could now go in that direction. I think that was something that people were struggling with, because even if you're making this chief different, it was like, even in spirit, it didn't feel like Chief, just because he seemed like a lost teenager, right? It was like he was going through that entire growth, just like all the confusion, falling in love with your first kiss. I mean, come on. Anyways, that whole thing. So, so I think that people really want to see badass Chief. They just want to see Mr. I'm in control of this. I know what we're doing. That confidence. And basically, like Chief, if you're thinking about it, like he's like a superhero, right? Like in some ways he's like a Marvel superhero in some regards. And I think they didn't really, capture that aspect.
That would
whether
be
you like that
doing the character a disservice, I feel, because Marvel superheroes are kind of one note for the most part. You know what I mean?
The Chief usually is, but yeah.
In the games, right?
Yeah, I mean, he is very one note. He's like a half a note.
One thing a lot of the game-only people watching the show didn't really understand was, the Chief in the book still shows emotion, still shows doubt. And yes, he takes his helmet off when he's not in a combat situation.
I always love bringing this up. A friend of mine does too. In Halo the Flood, he expresses fear over the Flood. Like when he's going through the library, Master Chief is terrified.
Oh, that's interesting. I did not even know that. All right, so we're late enough in the show here. We're going to just warn anybody.
Terrified might be strong, but anyway, he does express fear.
Scared.
My ultimate point. Yeah, he is scared.
He did poop his Mjolnir armor. Just squishing in his boots.
Now, according as we know from Halo Blast, Spartans are completely catheterized all over.
They've always got a tube straight up their butt in their urethras.
At least when they're in full Mjolnir, yes. Hopefully they streamlined that for the Spartan Force.
That's
probably going to be somebody's fetish too, man. The world.
But it is also just a reality of warfare, right? If we're going there.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So,
what are we talking about?
So I want to ask you.
Fetish.
we talked earlier, about all a couple times now about some of the different areas that the lore has gotten to, that the game players like myself that don't read very much don't know about. What are some of the key things that you think are really cool that maybe could be brought into the games? As we kind of move forward, like what are some things whether we talked about that world, which is really cool actually.
Yes.
But whether it's like, you talk about the prophets being alive, like I was like, really? I had no idea. So what are some other big surprises or really key things that you think could be part of Halo Infinite going forward?
Ooh, that is a really good question, actually.
What was the question again?
Basically, what like deep lore stuff would you like to see brought into Halo and Halo Infinite?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, I'd really like to see them do a proper in-game follow-up on the created. That's probably a big thing for me personally. Just like, even if it's just one last hurrah with them, just something to show the fallout of Cortana disappearing among the AI that joined her, and maybe give that a proper ending. Ideally, outside of a book, I'd like to see that get. I'd like to fight the Created one time as a proper faction in the games, I think.
Well, and game players don't even know what the heck that is, really, right?
Yeah.
Like,
it'd be an opportunity to introduce them properly, especially for anyone who hasn't played. Hell, there are people that have played Halo 5 and don't really know exactly what happened at the end there. So it'd be an opportunity to kind of reestablish what happened there. Some of the lore that might have happened in between, particularly prior to Infinite and Cortana's disappearance. And
where's that
most interesting
Halo ring from Halo Wars 2?
Yes, that'd be a great thing to do too. Follow up on Installation 09 and what Anders is up to. And that would be a great way to tie in the created. And then you might even have some seeds to plant for Halo Wars, which I have no doubt is going to be integrated into Halo Infinite or that ongoing story at some point.
I really got to play Halo Wars, huh?
They're the Divine Wind book is all about it.
Wait, Installation 09, so a new installation, not the one in Halo 3 that we saw.
That requires a little extra explanation. So just a moment, bear with me. Right, Installation 09. Forgive me.
So small arc, big arc, right?
Yeah. There's the small arc. There's the big arc. Back in the day, Installation 07 was originally one of the original 12 ring Halos that was made by the Greater Arc, 30,000. Or 3 times the size of a regular Halo ring that we know. Later, that was shrunk down. We saw that, of course, in Halo Infinite. Mm-hmm. So the numbers on Halo rings, those actually determine the order they were either built, or in the case of Installation 07, networked into the Halo array. Okay. So that replacement Halo ring in Halo 3 is actually Installation 08. It's still Alpha Halo, meaning it's still the first one to fire when the array fires, because that's what the Greek letter that's what the Greek letter designations mean. But it's a designation as an installation was Installation 08. So you could basically think of the installation number as a serial number, and anytime you order a replacement part, it's going to have a different serial number. And thus, by that, the Halo ring from Halo Wars 2 is Installation 09, or as some people like to call it, just for simplicity's sake, Anders ring, since that's where Anders is.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay, all right. Man, Halo's got some deep lore, huh? That's what Abe's thinking right now.
That's one of the more controversial pieces, too. There are people that are still upset about the replacement Halo rings not being called Installation 04, B, and C. Nothing against those individuals. I don't like that naming scheme, so I love the 08 and 09.
Yeah.
Anyway. And though, speaking of Halo Wars, especially after Divine Wind, I want Halo Wars 3, or I just want something following up on that and involving Caster from the Keepers of the One Freedom, what was those prophet warriors called? The prelates. The prelate from that book. I'd love to see him. And in general, I really want to see or hear more about this flotilla of Sanshayum and what it's up to. So maybe integrate that somehow. Who knows?
Yep, I really enjoyed that book, Ursel.
I'm curious though. Halo Wars 3. A lot of people want it, but do they have the developer to make it? Is of course the question, right?
At the moment, no. And like Halo Wars 2 has basically been completely abandoned.
Well, the developers know. Yeah, they're now doing. Weren't they doing?
They pulled the small number of people they had. So like that both MCC and Halo Wars 2 were supported by 343's internal live team. And then when, which was at that time was kind of small because most of the studio was working on Halo Infinite. And what was I saying? Wow.
They pulled the team off of Halo Wars.
Yeah, they pulled it. Yeah, thank you. They pulled it. Thank you for that. I get
Creative Assembly, right?
Sega? They were the ones that made number 2. Yeah, and then 343 took over the support after a little bit.
Oh,
and,
okay.
Then that team was completely gutted because MCC required all the attention because it was their major money maker.
I mean, hey, Microsoft's about to acquire a RTS developer that doesn't seem like they're working on anything. So
that'd be great.
Halo Wars 3.
But whenever
there's a few bigger.
They've got the Warcraft Reforged team, who are a good team, who were completely screwed over by executive planning.
Yeah.
So
even if it does come, it'd be a while. Yeah.
I think this is a good question. So there was so Isaiah Huff said, "What's everybody's favorite BR model?" I'll take it a step further. Start with you, Ian. What's like your favorite weapon from the Halo universe?
Ooh, that's a good question. Off the top of my head, I might say the railgun, just because I like any sort of magnetic acceleration based weapon, and I love the power the railgun like the feel of
the
that
sound.
The sound design's great. The visuals are great. I love the fact alone that it reloads on the top. That I don't know. It's just that's one of those things that just worked for me so well, and I love it. The
Do you have a favorite BR is to go with that?
Oh. That's a good question.
Does the light rifle count as a BR?
Sure.
I'll be controversial and say Halo 5.
Okay.
Yeah. Halo 5 BR. All
right.
I'll be controversial and say the worst one is Halo 2.
That is
That's a very controversial.
I like the Halo 2 BR in Halo 5.
I like having to spend $400 to unlock it.
All right. How about you, Sol? Where are you at?
Favorite weapon? Man, it's tough, dude. I was gonna say the OG shotgun, just because of the noise and the thing. But I'll be honest, and this is gonna sound probably a little suck uppy. I love using the Bulldog. Like I picked that up and it feels so good. The kind of like the weight to it, the 3-shot kill. It feels really like
It's a very fun shotgun. I really enjoyed it.
I don't want to say it's my favorite Halo weapon, but the first weapon that comes to my mind with that question is probably the Bulldog. At least favorite though. I don't know when to ask, but if it's least favorite, the goddamn Halo CE pistol. I don't give a crap what anyone says.
What?
That gun is broken. It barely requires skill. The flipping spread of the weapon is so stupid. This is
when I debate allowing children on our podcast.
I'm sorry.
Abe doesn't like balance. Abe likes feeling like a god.
I'm kidding.
You only need 2 guns in the entirety of Halo CE: the pistol and the sniper. That's it. Nothing else. And I play a lot of Halo CE, or at least I did for like 3 years. So God.
That's one of the reasons why
in
I
MCC it is particularly broken too.
Yeah, I mean it was always broken, but it was still good.
Yeah, but it is like particularly egregious in MCC. At least it was back when I was playing it. I haven't tried Halo CE.
Which one?
I'll say this:
my favorite.
Oh, go ahead.
You say what you want to say, Abe. Ooh, lightning.
No, I was going to say, I bet you without the Halo CE pistol, they would have never built up the competitive community that they built up. Because I think that was that was like
the only precision weapon you could have off.
Yeah, it made the game really skill based. It kind of flat. I get it. It was so overpowered that it flattened out the entire. All the other weapons in the game. Yeah, that sandbox and because of that, I think that flattening out of that curve that I would say most games sort of had. There's always a race to the best weapon and things like that, or you picked a different class and things like that. I think because of that, it made the Halo a lot more competitive and created that skill gap that I think still is pretty key in Halo today. So I think CE's pistol, I would go against you. So I think that was probably the most important weapon.
Important. Whether it's important and whether it sucks are two different things.
Yeah,
I did like the Halo 5 pistol.
The Halo 3 BR is very important for that game, but I think it sucks ass.
Oh, God.
If I
had to go, least favorite BR in terms of mechanics, it's that one.
If I'm going my favorite overall weapon, the needle rifle in Halo Reach was so broken and fun in the campaign, but that and the plasma launcher, the lock-on one, I always really enjoyed when I got those.
Kind of hated
those. Those are my favorite combo.
Oh, also,
that was a mixed bag for me.
I found my real answer, Abe. I remember I said this answer on this podcast probably like 45 episodes ago. But in Halo 2, when you had the sword, right, and you used the sword completely and you're left with this the handle, that was the best weapon in the damn game. I'm telling you, you'd hit so fast that an elite would have no time to like kind of respond to you, and I was taking out everyone with that thing. That thing was amazing.
Nice. Wow.
I think the Halo 5 pistol is probably the most underrated weapon in the Halo universe. That one's probably the most. It's really versatile, but it's not overpowering to the point where nothing else matters. So I think that's
now the Halo CE pistol in Halo 5, on the other hand.
Three-shot.
Yeah, that just breaks the game completely.
Three-shot skill with hit scan.
Right.
Yes. I got to think about it. The one that's really grown on me, especially as I've started playing with mouse and keyboard, is the Commando. That gun is incredible when you have much better aim because you're not on a controller.
I know from experience when we got to test that thing. But anyway.
Do we have questions, by the way, before I start doing the wrap up?
On the forum, we have one question, and it's an older one from Anorexic that he re-asked because we had missed it on that week. We forgot questions existed.
Yeah, there was a time where I was doing my wrap up, and like right before my wrap ended, I'm like, also, do we have questions? We had like 3 questions to go up, like a 2-hour podcast.
And Trav in chat there was very upset with me because we forgot about them.
Understandable.
All right, go ahead and ask your question there, Jesse.
It's not my question. What the fuck?
Anorexic.
Hello, Spartans. Now that we have a really good grasp on Halo Infinite's multiplayer gameplay and flow, along with all of its equipment, what is one map from Halo 1, 2, or 3 that you think would be perfect for an Infinite remake? I'm thinking the pit could allow all equipment to shine. The narrow corridors are perfect for the drop wall. Threat sensors can help with blind corners, and sliding down ramps helps with traversal speed. Same question, but this time one map from Reach 4 and 5. So you got the first 3, and then the last 3. What's one map you take from each? Go, Abe.
I thought we had something similar. And last time I said Zanzibar. I think I just want to see a remake of that. I think not a 1-for-1, but something at least in that spirit. I think with the big windmill and everything, maybe you could make it more you make this interactive. You got the little grapple shots and stuff. Could do some fun things with that in the. I don't know. To me, that's
real quick, Abe. Just let you know, there's one more because Mort literally just posted it.
Okay,
that's you know
cool,
how pissy he gets.
Yeah. Well, we usually ignore Mort just for fun. No, I'm just kidding, Mort. But yeah, I think it's more nostalgia. I've said that before. I don't even know. I at this point I don't even remember exactly how well it plays. I just remember it was the first thing that they showed at E3 for Halo 2 multiplayer maps. It was the first one I loaded into with my friends. And for whatever reason, it's the most nostalgic Halo map because of that for myself. So that's it.
Fair enough.
Ian, you go.
Well, from Reach 4 and 5, I'd say probably Longbow would be my pick. It's a very fun BTB map, although it can even work in smaller squad size or even 4v4. So very fun map, and it's got a good mix of open spaces and tight corridors. So you could have a lot of opportunities to use equipment very creatively in a lot of the different places on there.
I didn't know the name of this map, but this was the one that I was thinking in my head when I was saying Halo 4 had great big team battle.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And bring back Dominion while you're at it too. But that's not the question. Let's see. Halo 1, 2, and 3. If I had a personal choice, I'd bring back Chiron TL34. Not for any reason that it might be good in the game,
yes.
But just because of the sheer madness that map
produces.
I love madness like that.
For reference, I like one of the 2 only times we've had a Halo community night. I got control, which they all realized was a mistake 10 minutes later. But there's this game mode I played with some friends, and it was Kyron, no shields, everyone with a shotgun. And
God,
man,
I've played
that's so much fun. First thing Forge comes, I'm gonna try to remake Kyron and fail miserably, but I'll try.
If you do, you better share that because I'm looking forward to that. We finally get a game where someone can recreate Chiron or Chiron, whatever, completely accurately. Because like in previous games, it was I think there was like not enough teleport nodes or whatever to ever create it. There was always some problem.
If you have any specific requests for Forge, one of our site's co-founders, John, aka Sika Mechanico, is on the Forge like community team for helping develop the game. So,
yeah, we're looking forward to him being able to talk about that stuff. But it's still kind of.
If we go offline, it's a massive thunderstorm outside. Abe has lots of experience with that.
Oh, so you're saying that? Okay, yeah. So usually,
there's literally been nonstop thunderstrike or lightning strikes outside.
So Jesse's warning us that if the podcast goes off at this point, it's the thunder.
Blame Florida.
All right,
it's his fault.
So all right, so let's go ahead
because I already have my quick answers, easy answers, and kind of boring answers. It was 1, 2, 3. Lockout. I know, boring answer.
No, that's good.
I really enjoyed it. And I know hey. Staten, whichever, kind of hinted a little that we might get some older maps, and I think he name dropped that one. So curious. Halo's Reach 2. Actually, I'll just talk about Reach. Reach is a game that I was in grade 10 or 11 at the time for Reach, so it was like my go-to LAN game. And one map we played so much was Powerhouse, I think.
Oh, nice.
With the big water in the center and whatnot. And I'd love to see a map like that return in Infinite.
That might work a lot better in Infinite than it did in Reach, actually.
Yeah.
I don't play Halo multiplayer very often, so I don't remember the map name. So I'll say Devastation from Battlefield 5.
Jesus.
Okay. Sure.
All right, Jesse.
It's a great map.
All right. But all right, let's go.
And there's one more from Mort the Ignored.
Question. Yeah.
I guess. Oh, I didn't load it up. One sec. Get out of here, Anorexic. I have to put Mort's question there. Boosh. All right. I forgot I was back on Thursdays. Well, thanks a lot, Mort. Last minute questions then. What was one thing you really, oh, he only said it twice, hope will happen in season 2 of Halo the TV series? Let's start with that. Ian, what would you hope happens?
Exactly what I said I hope happens earlier.
That's how our question segments normally go.
Yeah.
Like, oh shit, we should have brought this up before.
Well, in this case, we did.
I want more sex, lots of it.
Okay.
50 Shades of Halo.
Mine's pretty easy
agree
too.
with that as long as Kai's involved.
Yeah. Mine's pretty easy too. I want ship battles.
What?
Yeah, I just want space battles. I was hoping to get it this season. Probably didn't fit in the budget. I want space battles. That's something that was always kind of present in the Halo universe, but never explicitly shown in the games. And yeah,
especially with the fall of Reach happens, we have to at least have one.
I want to see a goddamn Mac gun in like full function, just devastating a ship. Ah, God, he's so cool.
Right before it's torn apart by targeting lasers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Abe?
All right.
Yes, he is good with that one. But so,
okay.
What do you want, Abe?
Sorry, I was distracted. Repeat the question.
What do you want from season 2
What do you want
of
out
Halo?
of season 2 of Halo? What's your biggest hope?
Oh,
What do you want to see?
One thing
for this season that we've
Season
already
2,
been in?
yeah. No, season. What do you want
of the TV
to
show?
happen in
Sorry, the
season
TV
2?
show.
Oh, I'm good. Sorry about that.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So, apologize. I completely zoned out because I was trying to multitask
We can
at
tell.
that time. Yeah, it was a more question. It happens at least.
I know. There's another one too.
Wasn't the whole panel. No, for season 2, I like it. I mentioned this at the end of our review a couple weeks ago. I want to see. Number one, I just want to see good writing, to be honest. I want to see grown-up writing to match grown-up content. So that's the main thing, regardless of what direction they go in, whether they stay with the lore or not. I really want to just see a focus on things making sense, the dialogue making sense.
That's a cop-out answer, Abe. Give an event that you want to see in season 2, or something individual, something specific.
He wants to see Maki come back to life and have sex with.
No.
What about like a Spartan laser being used? That'd be cool.
Oh shoot! I said this already.
Her body?
I want to see. I want to see the skewer. I want to see a skewer. I want to see a skewer used live.
That'd be cool.
Oh my god,
that'd be really cool. I think it'd rip people to pieces though, not just impale them.
Well, you could do it like the spiker in Halo Landfall, the live action stuff for Halo 3.
Yeah,
because that Marine gets like pinned to the wall by a few spikes in his arm at one point. So if not the skewer, you could at least get your body pinned to a wall by hot metal spikes.
There's so many cool weapons and vehicles and all.
See a gravity hammer hit a regular Marine on the head and just have most of their body explode in gore.
I mean, they've already done the gore at the first episode, and they didn't
gore
really go
they
back
have
to
down.
it.
Yeah, and it's sorry.
They toned it down after that. I don't know if that was intentional or if that was budget, but I'm all for them.
It was less humans dying and more aliens dying. So we had alien gore in episode 5.
Yeah.
And
it's a different kind of gore that you're going to be less.
And in general, Halo, the way the show did the gore, the violence, I was actually really happy with, because I'm someone who can't handle like certain types of gore, right? Certain types of gore,
little baby
and violence.
Tummy, we know.
Like, for example, I wasn't watching The Northman because I thought it'd be super violent. I watched it; it was barely violent. That was overblown. But
I still need to see that, but neither here nor there.
But like how the way Halo handled it was really well done, because it keeps it fast paced. It keeps the focus not on like, oh my god, look at someone's guts flying all everywhere. It's someone like, this is happening. This is warfare. Let's go. You know,
yeah, it's framed as the horrific event that it is. The fact that it's exciting to see is just,
it's not this stupid, gratuitous, over the top Mortal Kombat crap that you get in like those games. You know what I mean? But it's still impactful. It still shows the result it wants to show without being gross. You know. Yeah. By the way, one thing we didn't talk about, and I feel like we should mention a little bit, is for all the faults the show had, the action was not one. To the point where I'd say it's some of the best action I've seen on television. Period.
It's some pretty damn good action. I'll happily admit that to that.
Except for when he threw that plastic-looking CGI gun on the ground for some reason in episode 1.
Wasn't painted.
It turned it all pixelated, like that was like the Craig moment. Yeah, I would, and for some of the criticisms I did have of the season, episode 5 was probably one of my favorite segments of TV.
Episode 5 is really strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it, you know what it was? It was, for years I've been wanting to see Halo on the big screen, and that felt like what you would imagine Halo would look like on the big screen. I thought they hit a home run in terms of like just nailing the feel, the pacing, even like this, like we mentioned it before, even like things on the battlefield had to make sense. It wasn't just mindless fast cuts of action that just didn't make any sense. And I really, getting back to that question, Mort's question, now I thought about it. When they do the battle stuff again next season, I want them to kind of capture that tone and feel where it feels like things are making sense, where the enemies and the both sides are being smart about how they're fighting. That was the one thing I really did not like in the last episode, where they're just kind of standing out there like they're the zombie apocalypse and just shooting out in the open. And to me, that was like, that was very, it felt like it was choreographed by somebody completely different than whoever did.
More episode 5, less episode 9 when it comes to the action.
So that's what I want to see.
Start with episode 5, go from there.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I 100% agree. And the set, I'm not sure if you guys have seen it, for episode 5 was so cool. They had a bunch of practical explosions. It was huge.
Yeah, 5 was
really
awesome.
good.
All right, and part 2 of Mort's question. Is there a specific character from the Halo universe you would like to see make an appearance in season 2?
Maki. No.
Oh my god.
I just want Kwan Ha, all of her brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles. I want everyone there for most of the episode.
Just to have everybody who's left to have a.
And then just off to the side, you have John with his helmet off, just standing there.
Seriously, there's one thing I want. I want Kwan Ha's haircut from the flashback. Give her that back, please. It was just normal.
So we're gonna have Kwan Ha and family, and it's gonna be like the Red Wedding. No, I don't.
What? She's already done that on her own.
Wait, the question was
that's already happened.
What character from the greater universe would you like to see?
Okay, I mean, there's an easy answer for me, which is, and it might actually happen. Depends on how much they focus on each reality story. But I'd like to see the Arbiter. I'd like to see him before, obviously, becomes the Arbiter. I'd like to see him fight at Reach, assuming they do follow Reach. That'd be really cool.
That's more or less what I would say. Yeah, it might be
Sorry.
everyone's answer.
I told you it was the easy answer. Now you guys have to pick up on the order.
Fan service. This is an easy one.
I want to see Dutch from ODST, and I want to see him die every episode like Kenny. Just kill him, repeat it, and make it Adam Baldwin, and you just murder him nonstop. Because God damn, is that character annoying.
Okay, I was going to ask, is this an issue with the
ODST
character?
is my least favorite game to play through because of Dutch.
Okay, well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I was just saying, actually, in one of my breakdowns with episode 9 was I'd love to see like members of Alpha 9 in season 2, even if it's just like a Halo Reach-esque cameo by one or two of them. But like
Nathan Fillion's probably easy to get him.
Get Nathan Fillion, get Trisha Helfer, and just have them make like a brief cameo in a couple scenes. We're already working with Oni half the time, so have Veronica Dare there. Why not?
Yeah, and we might actually see some Halo Reach Spartans, right? I mean, if they're doing Fall of Reach, they can't just say, "Hey, there's only 4 Spartans anymore." They got to kind of expand that.
They might have been teasing, or they might be teasing Colonel Ackerson, the head of the Spartan 3 program, on the website. So maybe that's what maybe we'll see the Spartan 3s.
Oh, I forgot to mention earlier. I couldn't think of anywhere to fit it in. I saw that, that little Locke Halo Infinite toy, like that little tiny minifigure where it's just Locke, where he's got like a tank top on and he's wearing ODST up. They're still selling that at a Target near me. I do wonder if we see him at some point in an expansion, because it's literally it's labeled Halo Infinite and it's Locke, and he has no armor, he has no helmet, he's wearing ODST gear and like fatigues.
Did we end up ever figuring out if we actually fought someone that was wearing Locke's helmet as a shoulder? I never actually looked into that.
Oh, Hyperius. He does
have it, right?
He does, not just the helmet, actually. It's actually like the front plate of the helmet too, I think. But he also has
I'm going to put it up on the screen.
Plate on the screen, or on his shoulder as well.
Yeah, this is the Mega Bloks toy I saw. This is Locke with like, he's got some of his Mjolnir, and then he's got like more fatigues and stuff. It's really weird. Oh,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I definitely want to see. I want to see Osiris in general get a second chance.
100%.
They really got gypped by the writing in Halo.
That's 5. A bad phrase, Abe. Don't use it.
Wait, is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it?
It's considered
people.
Yeah, it's considered or potentially offensive to.
Oh, my bad. My bad.
Technically, even
Gypsy, nope,
you're
canceled. Get out of here.
I had no freaking clue. Sorry about that.
This is how you learn, young man.
They did. Arise got done dirty. They had like one segment in one of the last missions where Cortana's like finally giving information about them. I'm like, this is awesome. Last five minutes. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, no, I do think that the writing really just didn't do him any favors, and there was a backstory to Locke, right? Like, and it sounded like it was something they could have even been made more emotional or really developed him with. They just didn't really do anything.
Like they talk about the fact
back. I was just gonna say, keep the voice actor, because that voice actor is much better than Mike Coulter's actual voice actor.
Yeah,
not a very good actor.
He does pretty good at acting, I think. I've liked him in a few of the roles I've seen, at least.
Well, he was good at Luke Cage, but like when I've heard him do voiceover stuff, it wasn't as good.
Oh no, that, to be clear, I'm talking about on-screen acting. Unfortunately, some people just do it. Just does not carry over between the two.
It's weird. Yep. I've tried doing it. It's very strange.
Some people just have that presence, right? Like, and we saw that with what's his name? Tyrion from Game of Thrones. Like, how bad was he?
I still think that's a direction problem, because there is good voice acting from him, and honestly, I don't have a huge problem with a lot of the initial voice acting that he did.
Okay,
there's some misses, but I think he's capable.
What was the line again?
On the other hand,
Wizard from the Moon.
Wizard from the Moon. Something like
that.
It's an issue. That is such a Bungie line, though. Like, come on.
It's an issue you notice if you ever watch the Star Wars prequels. They are jam-packed with incredible actors and actresses who sound wooden and terrible because of the awful direction they were given. Yep. And that happens sometimes.
There's a lot of like early anime dubs that they tried to bring in celebrity voices.
Princess
and it just
Mononoke.
does not work.
Yeah.
Oh, that one I'll defend. For one thing,
that one's okay. Compared to the rest,
amazing,
yeah,
I'll say.
So at the time, that was like the gold standard, but they still wanted to change so much with the friggin' Weinsteins.
But I don't think they changed anything, did
they?
Well,
didn't. He was big enough to not let them.
Yeah, Neil Gaiman directed or oversaw that that localization. So
Also, yes, on the chat, Keith David is one of the best voice actors of all time. I 1000% agree.
He's very old.
Yep.
They need to get him in.
He's a great actor, period.
He is a great. If anyone out there wants to see some good Keith David, watch They Live.
Mm-hmm.
I need to watch that. I
I
haven't seen it.
It's a really good
It has
film.
the best fight scene in film.
Yes, it has the best fight scene in
What the
cinema.
heck?
It's terrible, but it's realistically bad. Like a couple people who are just really
It's just a couple guys
shit.
beating
This
the
is
ever-living
the
crap out of-
Carpenter
Yeah,
movie,
Roddy,
right?
Roddy Piper.
yeah.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch this for a while. Like, I've been
good.
diving
It's
into his stuff,
It's
and
just
I love
5
everything.
minutes of them beating the ever-living crap out of each other over a pair of sunglasses. I love
And
it.
then like
I need to watch this.
getting some wrestling moves into a bunch of trash. It's
Oh yeah, the main character in that movie is played by a former wrestler, and
he's great.
He is great. He is great.
it's John
Anyway,
Carpenter, so it's good.
Yep.
Old John Carpenter.
Yeah, I've been trying to. Every time I try to watch movies that are pre 2000, I get shut down, and it's really frustrating. Like in a group, I mean, sorry.
Just hit them and say, "I want to do this." It works for me.
Yep.
I'm
All right.
I'd probably kill him. I'm very strong. All right, so we had one last thing from our very own Austin, aka Forebear, who was unable to be here because work sucks, and so he
Still love
wanted to
that
say,
name.
"Yes, that's great, and he's great." He wanted to say, "Happy Pride Month."
Yeah.
As one of the few LGBTQIA plus Halo content creators out there, how do you find yourself navigating a community that is easily perceived as toxic towards people like us? How have you adapted your content in the community around that part of yourself? How has your perception of yourself been affected by being queer in this space? I love your content, Ian, and thanks for coming on the show.
Well, I don't think I can give a very helpful answer, unfortunately. Luckily for me, I've the only time I've really addressed like LGBTQ issues on my channel was for a particular video back in, I think it was 2018, and it was basically LGBTQ plus representation in Halo, and that got the reaction I expected. So, yeah, there is absolutely a hostility towards LGBTQ people in just about anywhere on the internet. You could look anywhere online, anywhere in real life, of course. I have been very lucky, and perhaps it's part of just because Halo doesn't address sexuality all that often, for better or for worse. I've been fortunate that I have never really, or that my sexuality has never been an issue, or my identity has never been an issue for me, and I've never really, I think, just as part of my upbringing, perhaps, or just general white privilege, it's never been much of an issue, I suppose. So in that regard, I've never really had to adapt the content. The one video I mentioned before, I went into that knowing exactly what kind of response I would get, and hoping for a positive reaction from the people that I respected. Other content creators that I'm friends with, people from 343, and the people whose opinions I care about, they loved it. And I was lucky enough that most of the comments I could just kind of laugh at the negative comments. Of course, that said, as I've been trying to emphasize, that's probably not a common thing for people online, and I've been very lucky in that regard. Plus, it's also kind of probably hard for people to bring someone down who, if you already hate yourself, it's not, no one can say anything to you that you haven't already said yourself. And it's only recently that I've been trying to improve that part of me, So
Constant struggle.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it is.
Well, we appreciate you, man. And just want to just say, I think that, I talked to Forebear about this too, because he's part of the community, and
he's a great guy.
And I just think that, that's how you make the change. And it takes the people, sometimes at the front end, who are able to kind of put themselves out there, make everybody else feel better about themselves. So even if you, are take the hits, and maybe feel less while you're all of us when we were humans, right? Like when you take certain feedback, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I mean, I've joked about it before, but like even being in a bad relationship, anything like that, like if you take hits, it's going to impact you. But the great thing is that when you put yourself out there like that and you do great stuff and you just kind of stand there proudly, it does, I think it changes the landscape, it changes the environment, and it makes other people feel better about themselves. So that's one thing that I think anybody who puts themselves in that position can always something they should always feel good about themselves about is that they're making somebody else's day better that really needs it. You know, not everybody needs it as much. You know, some people
that was a big thing for me when I made that video, and even just being kind of more open about my sexuality and myself in general has you summed it up really good. Basically, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's the people being negative will always be negative.
Yeah,
but the positive impact you have on people, that's something that's different.
And the positive impact they can have back on you.
Yeah.
Awesome stuff.
Oh, thank you for
all right. Yeah. Well, thanks for the question and thanks for the answer. Appreciate that, Ian. So real quick, I think it's definitely something that's not talked about enough, and I'm glad that that is a good note to end that on. It is something that is not talked about enough.
Yeah.
I would honestly, just going off that for a second, I would love to see Halo embrace more LGBTQ representation where it can. There are plenty of examples in, mostly obviously in the EU, but even in the games to an extent of relationships being talked about, expressed, explored. Even Halo 3 ODST is a love story. That's at its core. You know, whether you agree on how well that's executed is another story, as I keep saying.
I love that Huragok, damn it. I was in.
Yep. The ultimate love story. I hope this doesn't awaken anything in me.
Keith David is also amazing in that show too. I'm just saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes. But
all right.
But yeah, so I would love to see Halo kind of expand that. You know, I use this exact example in my video on it. Instead of having DeMarco and Madsen talk about how they were impressing the ladies of Rio de Janeiro, have him say impressing the ladies and gentlemen of Rio de Janeiro. You know, it's one extra or just a couple extra words, and it won't be treated this way. But realistically, it should be no different than them already talking about. So, like, if you have no issue with Marines talking about their girlfriends in throwaway dialogue, or like male Marines talking about their girlfriends, then you should have no issue with a male Marine talking about his boyfriend.
Yeah, like it should just be normal.
It's the same. Yes. Yep. Show it as normal, because that is a great thing I really like about Halo society. A lot of it is post race, it's post poverty or post class,
pushing for the Star Trek ideals.
In a lot of ways, like there's still like heavy elements of capitalism and
colonization
and colonization. Yes. Mm-hmm. There's a very funny overlap between brown coats and Halo fans. I always love it pointing out. But
you're saying it's more capitalism, less hatred because of people are different.
It's more like people's issues are not over their stupid differences like race or sexuality. It's about the ideas of freedom. That's what humanity is fighting over. And in that I'd love to see more exploration of this kind of post-race, sex identity stuff. Generally post bigotry, except for the hate that we already had for each other.
I'd love to dive into the whole insurrection stuff with you at a later point, man. That's such an interesting topic.
It very much is. That sounds like something fun to do sometime.
Yeah. I feel like we could have probably done a 10-hour show today, honestly. Like, I had a list of things. I was like, oh man, we're already at
it hits on racism with the Covenant and the way those species treat each other. So it doesn't ignore it, which I also appreciate.
I should emphasize that when I was talking about like post-race, those things.
For the humans,
just for anyone watching, I want to make that expressly clear that that's what I was referring to. Like you said, through the Covenant, Halo can explore a lot of other different and interesting themes. Jesus.
You can even hit hentai with the hunters and the way they function.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
No joke. I have a friend. She is always talking about how she wants to have the option to bang a Hanar in Mass Effect. Like, yes, they should add that.
I played Mass Effect, so I get the reference now.
Before we do our sign-offs and end, though, the one thing I definitely just want to just give everybody a chance to talk about, and especially kind of hear from you, Ian, is the future. Kind of like, what's your expectations, hopes? I get, it could just be a few minutes. Kind of, are you expecting to see anything at the showcase? What is the next thing you hope to kind of see, or where are you at with the future of Halo right now?
What I would hope to see in the near future, I would hope that at the upcoming Xbox showcase, they have at least some kind of teaser for the next major story beat for Halo, whatever that ends up being. Maybe this Halo the Endless that we've heard copyrighted. I don't know. We'll see. Long term, I've honestly not been thinking about, or beyond that, I haven't really been thinking about exactly where I'd want to see Halo go, I guess, because I don't know. Halo Infinite just kind of left me more interested in seeing 343's vision unfold rather than I haven't felt the same sort of, or I haven't been projecting my wants, I guess, on the future as much as I have, or I did with Halo 4 and Halo 5. I'm at the end mostly just because I think that's going to be healthier for me personally. Yeah. Just to set no expectations and just kind of. Well, setting no expectations sounds like a bad thing in that case. I hope.
Maybe being open-minded, right?
Yeah, being open-minded and just, like I said, I just kind of want to see what 343 tells and unfolds. That said,
feel like I can trust them a little more than in the past.
That said, I do want them to, I do hope that they explore some interesting ideas. And it seems like they are, like the interference event. I'm not big on these narrative events as they've played out so far, but the cutscenes are really cool. And they actually make an interesting reward to work towards. At least it did in the most recent event, or in that recent event.
Because there was another cutscene after you finished the event, right?
Yep. Yeah. And it was interesting story-wise. To see like this first banished AI and these other Spartans surviving out there. So I guess my ultimate goal or my ultimate dream and want from Halo going forward. I don't know why I keep touching my toothbrush. Jesus. My hands. I love grabbing things with my hands and then I don't notice it half the time.
Anyway, I almost punch myself every show with my hands, so it's fine.
We want to punch you too, so.
It's fine.
No. So my ultimate hopes for Halo going forward is just capitalizing on the rich ground the rich groundwork that they've laid out. Obviously continuing the story of the chief and the weapon and the pilot. More than that, though, exploring beyond what's happening beyond what's happening at Installation 07. We talked about the ideas of following up on with Installation 09 and just other Spartans out there and what they're doing, following up on the created in general. So. If 343 can tap into this rich tapestry and really tap into it in ways they never could before, we're looking at a potentially amazing future for Halo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of potential for all the challenges, a lot of the rough edges they still need to smooth out and get consistent. There's still the gameplay foundation's there. It does seem like the foundation in general could be there.
And if they could do like an effective relaunch, as some people have speculated that they might be doing, at some point, it could be great.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking too. Like you bring up a good point, and that's why I wonder if they might not even show at the showcase, and only because I do think that they are going to have an opportunity with the C8 with certain affinities mode, regardless of whether people love it or don't. People are going to come back to Halo to try it when it comes out. They're going to want to see what a Halo BR-ish, whatever it is, Halo Warzone type thing, what that's like. And I think that it's not that they won't have opportunities again, but I think this is their best opportunity to bring the most people. And when they do, I think it's best that everything else is that they don't just bring it in to try to hold the fort while other things get finished as well. I think that those things need to be ready too. So that when people come back, they stay and they go, you know what? We like the progression. We like all the community features. We like that, we got I don't know. Just there's so many. I mean, there's so many things between theater mode and just basically finding different game types from the community and things. There's so many different opportunities they got to kind of sew up there. And I think at the end of the day, it's like get that stuff all right, get the performance consistent, all that ironed out, be ready to be consistent, and then leave your biggest bullet and like don't fire that until everything else is kind of lined up right behind it or with it, right? And I think that's where we're going to go, and that might mean they might have to take some more hits. They might have to like say, hey, we're not going to show up at the showcase. We might not want to show things until we are getting close enough that that we feel like we're ready for that relaunch. So and that might not be now, whatever it is, I hope they wait for.
Yep. I think when it comes to like the story, the campaign content, I know people, especially the last year, so I've loved to kind of bag on 343 their handling of the multiplayer in the seasons, and a lot of it is true for sure. I'm not worried about their campaign output because the campaign we got was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. Yes, the primary issue it had was being only one biome. It sucks, I get it, but at the end of the day, just in terms of the campaign, in terms of the work they put, other than co-op missing, I thought it was basically as good as it gets in a way. So for this answer for me is same thing, Abe, really, which is just iron out everything else, right? Get that ball rolling at the pace you want it to be rolling. 343 themselves have said several times that, hey, their goal is still 3-month seasons, right? Not this 6-month seasons. I know people think season 3 might be extended to, hopefully not. Hopefully by November, they've really got this stuff under control, right? Get that ball rolling, get that content pipeline into like the place you want it to be. And just hammer out the issues. If their focus this season is to release multiple drop pods, kind of fixing most of the major issues like desync, though I still think, Abe, I think you really got to talk to your ISP, bro, because you see way more desync.
I'm like the desync. I don't know. I feel like it's
desync king for sure. But take the season, the near future, just really get that ball rolling. That's what I think.
Yeah. Cool. Good stuff. All right, is that time for a sign off? I mean, people might have to use the restroom by now.
I've had 2 of these. I'm going strong.
Well, first of all, Ian, I want to thank you. It's been awesome.
It's been a pleasure. This was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been so awesome, and if you say you're having fun, we might take you up on that and see if you want to come back again.
Yeah. I would have checked.
It's kind of reignited my interest in reading the books again. Like I went crazy before 2015.
Abe might read his first book since preschool.
No, this was awesome conversation. I feel like we could have gone on for forever, right?
Oh, I have no doubt.
Different areas, and when they do finally drop some, campaign information, teasers, whatever, I'm curious to see what your thoughts are. I will tell for all of our audience out here that's maybe hearing you for the first time, I want to suggest go check out Ian's content, Halo Canon. Really well put together, really detailed. Some of the
puppet shows,
really knowledgeable. Yeah, there's substance to your content, and I just want to give you a lot of credit for that. It's awesome. Ian, I guess I'll let you kind of. Is there anything else you want to kind of say about sell yourself? Tell people where they can find you, all that stuff.
Jesus.
Yeah. Well, if you want to check out my channel, like you said, it's Halo Canon. That's Canon, canon like Bible canon almost. We just talk about aspects of lore over there, and it's been a little dead lately. But
he's selling himself short. I'll be honest. I had almost lost faith in Halo YouTubers to an extent, and then I found your channel and a couple others where I'm like, wow, this is good. Like finally, content I can really watch and not hate myself.
Okay. I'm glad to hear that.
Great work,
Thank
man.
you.
Well, and for people that want to get caught up in the story stuff, and that's where I started listening to a lot of it too. This is a really great way to cheat if you don't want to read.
Hey, look, I love Halopedia. It can be a hassle though to read through articles. That's why I love just listening to like lore channels on YouTube.
Yeah.
Like you can just read off the wiki for all I care sometimes, because that's sometimes all I need. But
I've got that giant ass Halo encyclopedia, and I've been going through it, and I'm still like this much. It takes a long time to read these things.
Yeah, I've been skipping through, looking at stuff that I want. I'm just zoning in on certain stories and all that. But All right, awesome. And I guess Sol and Jesse, I'll just what are you guys doing? Anything you want to call out?
You just did a review that'll go up Sunday most likely because it was late.
It was supposed to come out today. But no, technically, one thing our channel's doing is we're working on our predictions video for the showcase coming up. Look forward to that sometime early next week. Should be a fun time.
Predictions. Jesse, how about you?
I just put out. I don't know. I just put out like I'm. Sounds like I'm making up like 5 or 6 reviews in the last couple weeks. Silt was the newest one. I'm working on Hard Space Shipbreaker right now. And I'll be working on AI, the Somnium Files, Nirvana Initiative, if you're a weeb. Because I actually really freaking enjoyed
a bunch of
the
people
first
have been
one.
recommending that to me lately.
It's on the first one's on Game Pass.
Okay.
Really good. I
check
really
that out.
liked it. Super horny, so maybe don't play it around kids.
But
But it's making fun. It's making fun of the horny, which really
I like that.
Yeah, it didn't feel like manipulative.
So
or
it's
anything.
doing
It
what
was
all the
really
fans.
smart.
It's doing what Kill La Kill fans claim that show does.
Claim.
Yes.
Claim, yes. I want to emphasize
Oh,
that.
and so shockingly like gory at times, specific times where it earns it. Very
Interesting.
very interesting.
Okay.
Well,
And I'll have a
You
review.
were
of the
selling me
sequel
on
for
it,
that
but
one.
now.
Yeah.
No, if you weren't bothered by the Northman, this one's fine.
Okay,
I
awesome.
mean, it's
I'm using
not
that
a
as my
great
bar
looking
now.
game, so it's not like it's
Yeah, there
gonna
you
go,
go.
oh god,
Perfect.
photorealistic.
Okay, awesome. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, so I'll have the review of that one coming out later this month, and yeah, mostly
Cool.
it's working on stuff for the Xbox Bethesda showcase. So we'll be covering the crap out of that in Summer's Games Fest. Ursula and I are gonna co-stream that one
Yes.
on the 9th. So yeah, keep an eye on this channel.
Yep. A lot of stuff going on at Xbox Era. That's xboxera.com. Go there. Go visit our forums.
And
We do have a
the most important thing is, patreon.com/Xbox Era. Even if it's just $1, that is by far the best way to help our channel pay our, thankfully, not too bad bills. But if we ever want this to become bigger and better, that'll probably be the best way that we can be funded.
Yeah,
And
go
if
check
you
them out
guys-
on Patreon.
And if you guys are looking for a place to talk Xbox or gaming in general, which is for the most part really well moderated and really well reasonable in
There's
general,
bad moderation.
we have
There's
our own
always bad
forums.
moderation.
They're still small, but they're still growing, and they're pretty welcoming. So if you're looking for a place to just talk gaming, give that a shot.
Awesome. All right, guys. And then I'm about to. You can find me at OneBadMother at mother_.
If you just load up YouTube and type in podcast live, you'll eventually find a.
I pop on a lot of podcasts, so I'll be all over the place, especially with E3 stuff. So
Certain
yeah,
ones
follow me.
anymore, though.
Follow me on Twitter, and I'll tell you where I'm at. If you want to hear me for whatever reason.
I changed our names to be our Twitter handles.
Yes, I noticed that. I was like, I didn't write that.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's good.
I've got
All
the
right.
Strumpf.
Well,
For
I'm gonna let
those
everybody-
still watching, I did keep track of timestamps in this episode.
Ooh,
So
nice.
if you just watched and you didn't catch the
Nice.
beginning, I have quite a few. So just keep an eye out for that, probably later tonight or tomorrow morning. And the audio should be up tomorrow morning too. And again,
Yeah,
thank you.
I
very much.
recorded it this time, so I'll get you that MP3 real quickly.
Awesome.
Thanks for
I gotta
watching,
upload last
everyone.
week's too.
All right, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care.